Good evening, everyone. Would everyone call to order for the City of Boynton Beach City Commission meeting today, Tuesday, August 6, 2019 at 6:31 p.m. Would everyone please rise for invocation from Pastor Alex Churkola, Healing for the Nation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner McCrae.
Good evening. My name is Alex Churkola, pastor of Healing for the Nations Church, and this is my wife, Pastor Antoinette, and at this time she'll give the invocation.
Heavenly Father, we humbly come before you on behalf of the leaders and the commissioners of this community, Boynton Beach, Florida. We thank you, Father. Your word says in Psalm 133, where there's unity of brethren, you command a blessing in its life forevermore. And we are authorized by you to pray for our leaders. We thank you, Lord God, for the Boynton Beach Police Department, Fire Department. We thank you, Heavenly Father, for the emergency services, the first responders, all of our veterans in our cities and our communities that have served us. We thank you, Heavenly Father, that we can lift up those who are grieving in Ohio and Texas. And we take the authority of your word and say, this will not happen in the state of Florida. This will not happen in Boynton Beach, Florida, in Palm Beach County. For your word says in the book of Job, we can declare and decree a thing and it shall be established. And Father, we speak your peace and safety upon all of our workers here, all of the staff of the city, all of our teachers, our children that are going back to school. We thank you, Lord God, for safety in the homes of everyone here. And we lift up all the residents who have sacrificially taken their time to come. But Father, we thank you. You love diversity, and Boynton Beach is a city of diversity and love. And we extend our love, and we say there will be no homelessness. Your word says that you, in Deuteronomy 28, you command a blessing. So we take that commanded blessing upon our leaders and their families, and we thank you for their service, Father, and everyone here who is representing the citizens of Boynton Beach. We thank you, Father God, for peace and safety as they come and go. In Jesus' precious holy name, in the name of God, the Father of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I have a roll call, please?
Mayor Stephen B. Grant.
Present.
Vice Mayor Justin Katz.
Here.
Commissioner Mac McCrae.
Here.
Commissioner Christina Romulus. Present. Commissioner Ty Pensurga.
Here.
There is a quorum, Mayor.
All right, thank you. So I've been asked to add some items to the agenda. One of an announcement of all the new hirees that the city has had under 3D. And then also we have a new business item regarding a request of community support funds. Commissioner McCrae, would you like that before consent agenda?
Please, thank you.
All right. Is there anything else to amend the agenda?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to add under announcements and presentations, we have two representatives from the Palm Beach County Behavioral Health Coalition that'd like to speak about their mission and their goal for our city.
Okay.
We have Alexa Lee and Chukwuma today. Yes, we do.
Okay.
Mayor,
Yes.
I'd also like to remove item 12B from the table. I believe we can all agree that term limits or the removal of term limits is not what is being sought here in this item, and I would like to sit down with the city attorney for clarification on what that agenda item should have been looking for, so I'd like to remove that item from the table.
Item 12B is not on the table. Would you like it to move it off the agenda?
Move it, yes, off the agenda. Thank you.
Okay. Is there... And now, is there a second for... Is there any objection to any of the amended agenda? Yes.
Go ahead and finish with Commissioner Romulus, and then I have something to say. I was just going to ask, so if we remove it from the agenda, anything related to it has to be reapproved by this commission to go back on the agenda. Like, it's not that we're removing this and something else is going to be decided and put back on the agenda without us approving it at a future date, correct?
Correct. I remember that we've had public comment about it, and there was discussion about it that we had maybe to have a discussion about it. It seems that this commission does not want to have a discussion about it. So,
Okay. I mean, I support removing it. I just want to make sure that it doesn't come back automatically in some different iteration. It needs to be represented, approved by this commission if some different version comes back.
correct. We made it so that we're not supposed to unilaterally put items on the agenda. So,
What I'm requesting is that I would like to sit down with the city attorney and get clarification on what my motion was when I made it for this agenda item. The data that has been brought back was not what I was requesting when I made my motion, so I'd like to sit down with the city attorney to clarify that. So that's what I am asking. So I would like to bring this back up, but not with it the way it is in its current form.
Could I just suggest that then be moved down to
future agenda.
future agenda item, section 13, as a subcategory?
So then we will move it down to future agenda with changes.
But what is it?
What's it called?
We don't know what it's going to be if this discussion between a commissioner and a city attorney is going to precipitate something different than what's currently advertised.
It'd be the same way it's listed right now, provide information concerning elected officials' terms of office to commission. And then just some data sheets with regard to that.
I mean,
Want to make that more specific?
for what it's worth, I received a number of emails today. I don't know how many people are here to speak on this, but if there's a lot of people here to speak on it, it's just a discussion. It's not an actual ordinance before us. So, I mean, I'm not interested in removing it so it comes back without any discussion of this commission in some different form that I'm not aware of.
So for clarification, and I believe everyone who's in attendance who may want to be speaking about this, and I've received the same emails you've received, Vice Mayor Katz, I believe most of us are in agreement that term limits, the removal of term limits, is not in anyone's best interest. So again, the reason that I want to remove this, or at least put this down into future agenda, is because that is not the topic that I would like to have in regards to this agenda item. So therefore, that's why I don't think it's needed to be had, and really no public comment is needed on it because it's not the right topic of discussion.
But so
excuse me, before we go back and forth, I'm just going to say we're going to take it, I've had a request to take it off the agenda. If this board wants to put another item or a different, or the same item back, it would have to get motion and seconded again. Is everyone okay with that it's not on the agenda for tonight?
Mayor,
Yes.
thank you. I'm not okay either. I'm just saying I need to know how many people, appeared tonight to speak on this item. I'm just saying, we advertise, and then when it's advertised like we do what the state said we're supposed to advertise it, and when it comes before us, then it seems like we're backing up again. I'm just saying whether it's right or wrong. If anybody wants to speak on it, I feel like they should be able to speak tonight, whether we act on it or not.
Well, if we take it off, they could speak at public audience.
And just a point of information, the item on the agenda says provide information concerning elected official terms of office to commission. It doesn't state this is a discussion about the elimination of term limits. It's a discussion about elected officials' terms of office. So the request to remove it under the position that this is a conversation about eliminating term limits, I was under the impression it was just a discussion about elected office terms because that's what it says. So, I mean, to me, there's people here to speak on it. So if on the agenda, it's just a discussion.
So for item 12B, I'll need a motion and a second. Otherwise, I'm not getting any concrete answers. So can I get a motion? I believe Commissioner Ramos, you asked to have it removed to future agenda.
Yes.
All right. Is there a second for that? Seeing none, motion is denied for lack of a second. Is there any other? Yes.
Right. Mayor, I'd like to have it placed under tonight for discussion with what has happened in Texas and Ohio. The reason I want this placed on the night for discussion is I need to know what is the parameters that employees of this city are protected from having citizens running up to them, threatening them, et cetera, and talking about what they're going to do and calling them out of their name, et cetera, as well as the elected officials. I'm just saying, I want to make sure that the citizens and the employees of this city, that they have rights here in this city, and they need to be treated like employees and also be treated like human beings. If you have a quorum, we have something in place where you're supposed to go through a certain person, and that's what we need to follow what we have in place. And if we don't have it in place, I'd like to discuss it tonight to make sure we have something in place.
Would you like it under new business, active shooters?
Please.
All right. Do I have a second for that?
Second.
All right. Is there any other additions, deletions, or corrections to the agenda?
Motion to approve.
As amended?
Yes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor state so by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Agenda is approved unanimously. Beginning with informational items by members of the City Commission. I'd like to begin. I do apologize for not being able to attend the past City Commission meeting and the budget hearing. I believe I just heard great words of Vice Mayor running a very smooth and efficient meeting, so thank you, Vice Mayor, for that. While I was in Italy, I did go to Ferrandilla on the 8th and 10th of July, and I will speak about that later on new business. July 25th, I attended the electric bus demonstration over at the Palm Tran headquarters. I attended the Palm Tran Service Board meeting. I went to Painting with a Twist 3rd anniversary. On the 26th, I attended the Boynton Beach Fire Department's Explorers Open House. And I'd like to commend our fire department for having this Open House Explorers. I spoke to our firefighter who's running this, and it's teaching our youth career education and training, and that I know that was one of the initiatives that I was looking to have, and I'm glad our fire department is leading that way. The 29th, I attended Sister Cities meeting, and then I was asked to judge Carolina Ale House's chicken wing eating contest, but they told me they had enough judges, so they asked if I would like to partake, and I said sure. So little did I know that I was the champion, going to be the champion wing eating contestant for the city of Boynton Beach's Carolina Ale House. So I get free wings for the year. On August 1st, I attended the police presentation that our Chief Gregory did for Briny Breezes. We did not get the contract, but I believe that we're going to be better off. And then this past Saturday, I went to Congress Middle School for their jamboree, St. John's with Pathways to Prosperity Back to School Bash. I went to the mall for the opening of the Boynton Beach Marketplace and attended Metro PCS for their backpack giveaway. Commissioner Pensurgo, do you have any information?
Not at this time, no disclosures.
All right. Commissioner Romulus.
Sure. So these past few weeks, I got to do a little bit of travel, and one of the conferences that I attended was the Sister Cities Conference. There's some background noise.
And feedback.
Is that me?
Somebody's phone.
Feedback.
No, is that you, Dr. Blas?
No, that's it. It's excuse me. Did you silence his phone? I think it's. I will remind everyone to please silence their phones or turn them off. Thank you.
And we have new microphones here tonight. If you haven't noticed,
I hear it's.
Stay about 6 inches away or so, because otherwise we'll blow out some eardrums. But we have hopefully a better sound system for the audience as well as the commission.
It's very crisp. I like. Okay. Well, either way, back to what I was saying. I had the opportunity to attend my first ever Sister Cities conference, and it was a very just enlightening opportunity. It was held in Houston, Texas, and I would say one of the just best parts about it was the opportunity to just meet officials from all over the U.S. and all over the world, and really just talk everything from trade to cultural exchanges to policy exchanges as well. So one of the ideas that I actually just talked about with the chief in regards to criminal safety and just safety of our residents here is the implementation of the ring cameras around our high crime areas and high crime neighborhoods. So just some of the great things that I was able to just talk with other members that attended the conference. In addition, it was the 50th anniversary of the Apollo 11 lunar landing. So anybody who wants to see the cool pictures of me being an astronaut, they are on my Facebook page. But it was just an opportunity really that I'm grateful for. Also got to hear from the 43rd President of the United States, George W. Bush. He happened to be there, and he is a riot, very hilarious gentleman. And he's definitely one of the people who supports the Sister Cities program and supports the initiatives, where cities can interact with one another rather than having to either work through the federal level or the diplomatic level. We can be global citizens ourselves. We can be diplomats ourselves as residents, just as the mayor recently did by going to Farandola and just kind of creating those relationships and those partnerships. So my goal and the purpose of attending that Sister Cities conference was to really just have an opportunity to highlight the relationships that are possible and to really just take more advantage of the relationships that we can foster with our neighbors around the world. So I'd like to see our Sister Cities program grow and build in that way and continue the exchanges that we've started here and show the world what Boynton Beach has to offer. With that, that's really all I have to offer for today. Thank you.
Commissioner McCray.
Thank you. I'd like to say I attended the Florida East Coast Baptist Association Congress of Christian Education at the St. John Missionary Baptist Church, their opening session. I'd like to say to the four of you, you all was very well represented. I was the only one there, but they didn't let me speak, so I didn't mind, I also like to give kudos out tonight, and that is, first of all, to Community Standards and Mr. Harry Woodworth from Inca. And this is for pushing for the car wash on Federal Highway to be cleaned up. And as I passed by tonight, city manager, they had a fence around it. So I just want to say to you all, thank you. So we do listen to what you all say. I'd like to give kudos to our Boynton Beach Fire Department. And the reason I want to give y'all kudos is that on 5:30 the other morning, my niece awakened me in the house and she said the air conditioner was on fire because the fumes was coming through our house. I had to go up and check the air handler 3 times. And she said it's still on fire, so she and her son got out and left me in the house. So I said, oh no, this is not going to work, so I beat them getting out. Upon standing, I went outside and I saw the smoke. That wasn't good enough. She said it's still something burning. We got in our car, and we went over and we heard the fire engines going off, and we got a chance to witness firsthand what the fire department, what you all do. I watch you all on your ladders, up above the flames. You all, your lives was in danger, and I just want to tell you all, y'all kept changing and changing. I said, my God, it's like it wasn't going to ever go out. And I just want to tell you all, from one concerned citizen, not an elected official, I'm a concerned citizen. I want to tell you all, thank you for helping keep the citizens in this city safe, because you all evacuated around there where it could have been a massive fire. And Boynton could have been on the map for something that was avoided. And I just want to tell you all, thank you. Thank you for doing your job. A lot of times we haggle about paying you all and saying, about what you all need and what you don't need, about getting new equipment, etc. I would just want to tell you all, thank you. Everything that you all have requested, I've seen it in operation. Job well done. City manager, please notify our Boynton Beach Fire Department. I'm saying tonight, Commissioner McCray, thank you. Job well done. Thank you.
Vice Mayor.
I attended a Quantum Park Property Owners Association meeting a week or so ago, and that is it.
All right. Thank you very much. Moving on to announcements, community and special events and presentation. Our first is for Dorothy Jacks, the Palm Beach County Property Appraiser, to address the Commission.
Well, good evening. I'm a little scared of the microphone, so I can't have a loud, booming voice, but I will try and keep it in check. Well, it's a pleasure to be here this evening. Very nice to see you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. I had spoken with your city manager a little while back, and she had asked if I would come to this evening and talk a little bit about how property values are impacting Boynton Beach, and tell you a little bit about trends and things that we are seeing in Palm Beach County as well. So I have a short slide presentation, and I'll get started. So a little bit just first about the county, which is growing leaps and bounds. We are the third most valuable county in Florida, also the third in size as well, parcel count. You can see our market value is $276 billion now, the taxable value almost $200 billion, new construction county-wide of over $2 billion. That was just things that were finished last year. So each year new construction is recalculated based on the prior year's construction. Overall percentage increase of 5.7%. The more interesting one, I know to your audience, which I'm just so impressed at the size of your audience. It's wonderful to see so many engaged citizens in our community. So kudos to you for being here. But Boynton Beach, market value at $8.9 billion now, almost $9 billion. I'm sure it will be next year. Taxable value at $6.2 billion. New construction of $93 million. And a taxable increase of 7.44. So you are passing the county average, which is excellent. Your parcel count is 33,000. Tangible accounts are, of course, business, personal property, so we tax those as well in Florida. And so that's just an indication of probably a good idea of a number of registered businesses you have in the city of Boynton. The people often ask, where do you stack up? And I put together this slide just to show you now. So parcel count wise, you are the third largest city in the county, just a little bit higher, just a hair higher than Delray Beach. Jupiter, Palm Beach Gardens probably are going to be going up that chart in the next few years as they continue to build large communities in what is really the western part of the county. But you can see West Palm Beach is the big parcel count number and Boca Raton second. But when we look at value, the numbers change just a little bit. I don't think they change in a bad way, but you can see there Boca Raton actually takes over. And interestingly, Palm Beach, which only has 9,000 parcels, comes in second in value at $24 billion. Then followed by West Palm Beach Gardens, Jupiter, Delray, Wellington, and Boynton Beach. So you are definitely well within the top 10 cities in the county, and I think that things are looking very good in Boynton as far as where you're going. The next slide shows you a little bit about how we get from your market to your taxable value. I like to show this slide and the one that follows it so you get a sense of where you're, I don't want to say losing value, but where value goes as it goes from market, which is the sort of value of everything overall, and then gets reduced down to taxable, which is the value you're collecting on. So the first biggest thing is the Save Our Homes differential. That's caused by the homestead exemption. So people who are homesteaded receive a cap in the amount that their value goes up each year. This year that's 1.9%. And over time that differential grows. Now you lose that cap when you move. You can actually port some of it with you when you go to a new home. But over time it builds up. In every community that's the case. The non-homestead is the 10% cap on non-homesteaded property. Again, nowhere near as large as the Save Our Homes. It hasn't been around for as long, and 10% is a pretty big threshold to meet as far as value increase year over year. Very small amount of ag, and we get down to the bottom blue line, 85% of assessed value. You may be wondering where the homestead is. Well, there's the homestead. We now take out exemptions, which are different than assessment reductions in a kind of strange sort of property tax sort of way. But exemptions are then counted out, and again, homestead is, of course, the biggest. The reason we separate additional homestead is because not everybody receives it. A lot of people think they get a $50,000 homestead, but unless your value is over $75,000, which not everybody's is, you don't get that additional $25,000. You get it once you hit that threshold. So that's why that number's a little lower, but fairly close. The additional $25,000, which you grant here in Boynton, is an additional homestead for low-income seniors, and that provides a sort of additional homestead exemption to those that qualify. The tangible personal property exemption, the first $25,000 of all business accounts is exempt. Government property, $313 million, that's fairly normal. Institutional property would include it would actually include private schools, churches are the big number in there, not-for-profits and so forth. That's what is in that $315 million. And then other exemptions are very small, getting us down to a taxable value, which is 70%, approximately 69.4% of your market. I will tell you that I have seen that number, that 70%, as low as 50%. So I think 70% is a really healthy place to be as far as the relationship of your market to your taxable value. It's about where you would see most cities of your size and of your makeup. I don't usually see it much higher than that. So, and of course you don't want it to be a whole lot lower. So I just missed, let me go back, yeah. I wanted to show you this slide which shows the sort of the demographic, if you will, from a property standpoint makeup of your city. The blue is residential property, the red is condominium, the purple is commercial. And so interestingly, I always like this, you see that on the market value slide, the residential has a larger piece of the pie, but when you get to the taxable value slide, your commercial property has a bigger piece of the pie, because actually commercial property, because it doesn't have homestead exemption, does tend to carry more of the taxable burden. And that's, again, it's a nice mix. I often go to cities where that residential and condo bar is even bigger, but you have a good mix here in Boynton. It's one of the things I think that is going to reflect well on your future. A couple trends in Palm Beach County that we're watching. All of these, I think, as I read them today, are probably right here in Boynton Beach as much as anywhere else. We are seeing this steady increase in value. The increase of about 6% has been that way for the last 3 years, and we suspect it will be again this next year. Apartment complexes, very popular. It seems to be the place where much investment money is going at the moment. So we added 20 apartment complexes this past year, and we will probably add another 10 to 15 next year. The fast food renovations I always like. If you've noticed, there's a lot of renovation going on in fast food restaurants. I think that's probably a reaction to the changing mix of what fast food is these days. We saw this happening last year in convenience stores. So gas stations and convenience stores seem to be last year's trend. But this year we're seeing a lot of fast food renovations. Downtown cores continue to be very hot. I know you have a lot happening here in Boynton in that sector as well. Hotels are experiencing probably the best business economy since the 1960s. We've added 20 hotels in the last 2 years, and we're continuing to add them. Now, of course, they're quite different than they used to be. A lot of them are small, more boutique-y style. And then the industrial sector continues to boom. Any kind of warehousing is doing very, very well. And of course, this is a reaction, I think, most part to our internet economy and the changes there. So within the office, we are excited because we're changing the proposed tax notice. I know you're getting ready, probably, if you haven't already, well, you will have already set your new millage rate for 2019. The new notice is going out in just a couple weeks and will look a little different. It's going to have two sides. It's going to be one sheet of paper with data on both sides. One side will have all taxing authority information, which will include your information, and the other side will have market value value and everything else that taxpayers need to know about values and benefits, so Save Our Homes and homestead exemption and so forth. So keep an eye out for that. It mails in late August. And with that, I said I would be brief. I would be happy to answer any questions if you have any for me, specifically to property taxes, but it's an absolute pleasure always to come and speak to you.
Thank you so much, Dorothy. We really appreciate it. It was very informative. I do want to let you know I did call your office because they said that I lost my homestead, and then I told them, no, I just ported it, and they're like, oh yeah, we found the document, you got your homestead back, so I appreciate that.
Well, we might have seen your name and wanted to give you a little scared. No,
All right.
Absolutely not. I'm glad it was all sorted out.
Yes, so thank you. Yes, Vice Mayor?
I just wanted to thank you for taking the time and coming out today. I know that I think of all the constitutional offices at the county level, the property appraiser is the one that people are very excited to hear about because it's, they want to know what's going to happen with their property taxes. They want to know, they're actually interested in the gritty facts and details. So I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate you coming here. And everybody seems to love what you're doing from what I've heard, whether it's out in Cobra or the other communities as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Seeing none, thank you so much, Dorothy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Our next is an announcement of the following meetings. Our September 3rd commission meeting will be moved to Thursday, September 5th at 6:30 p.m. at Intracoastal Park Clubhouse to hold our first public budget workshop for fiscal year 2019-2020. Special commission meeting on Tuesday, September 10th, 2019 at 6 p.m. at Intracoastal Park Clubhouse to adopt a final fire assessment for fiscal year 2019-2020. This meeting will be held immediately before the CRA meeting. In addition, we have our regular commission meeting on Tuesday, September 17th, 2019 at 6:30 p.m. at Intracoastal Park Clubhouse. Next, we have a proclamation for the month of August 2019 as Florida Water Professionals Month. City of Boynton Beach Proclamation. Whereas the Florida Water and Pollution Control Operators Association, organized in 1940, is a nonprofit trade organization that promotes the sustainability of Florida's water utility industry through workforce development to protect the health of Florida's citizens and to preserve the state's water resources. And whereas this organization offers water and wastewater treatment plant operator and water distribution operator training courses required for the state of Florida's operator license, 8 voluntary certification programs and continuing education programs for our operator license renewal. And whereas this organization is recognizing the importance of the Florida statutes and administrative code that regulate the water industry, acts as a liaison between the Florida Department of Environmental Protection and industry personnel. And whereas the Florida Water and Pollution Control Operators Association recognizes all those who have played a significant part in operating and maintaining drinking water, wastewater, and stormwater systems in Florida by celebrating Florida Water Professionals Month, which applauds their constant effort to protect our health and environment. Now, therefore, I, Stephen B. Grant, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Boynton Beach, Florida, hereby proclaim August 2019 as Florida Water Professional Month. And do we have someone to accept?
Yes, Joe Paternity, our utility director. There he is.
Thank you, Commission. Joe Paternity, Utility Director. I'd like to accept this on behalf of our 130 plus employees in the utility department that work every day to provide good potable water, wastewater collection, and reuse for the city, for our utility customers. Thank you very much.
All right. I'd also like to thank for the work that you do so that the amount of rain that we've had over the past week or so, making sure that it gets into our canals and out to our ocean so there's no flooding in our city. So we really appreciate all the hard work that you're doing, making sure that we are above ground, or above water. Yeah. Yeah. Above the water.
Both.
Next, we have an add-on to our agenda, an introduction of our new city employees. Lori?
Yes, we have 2 new employees to introduce to the commission and the public tonight. I don't see him in the audience, but I know Crystal Gibson is our new city clerk.
She's there.
Come on up here, Crystal, and I'm going to go ahead and pull Adam up as well, our new community standards director. And they're going to tell you a little bit about themselves, but Crystal comes to us from Palm Beach Gardens. She has served several municipalities in Palm Beach County as a city clerk, as well as actually doing some community standards work, right? Which is kind of funny. But she has her master's in public administration, as well as a master's as a municipal clerk, which is a great attainment. So, do you want to just say a couple words? And we're going to put her to work at the next commission meeting. I figure I'd give her, after a couple days on the job, I wouldn't stick her up here just yet, but wanted to introduce you.
Sure. I'm Crystal Gibson. I'm your new city clerk. It's a pleasure to be here. Looking forward to working with everyone. Love the city. Glad to be back in the clerk's office, close to home. It's a beautiful city, so I'm looking forward to serving you. Thank you.
Crystal, you said close to home. What is home?
I'm just outside of the city, an unincorporated county.
In Boynton?
Yeah,
just outside of the Boynton area.
Okay, well, I'm going to be the first to tell you welcome aboard, and I want to welcome you here to our city.
Thank you.
And no matter what they say about the rest of them, I'm the best one up here, okay?
I'll take note. Thank you.
All lies, all lies.
All right. Thank you, Crystal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard.
Yep. Thank you. And then we have Adam Temple, who's our new community standards director. You know, one thing in government is we're really not ever ashamed to poach people from other cities. So we did quite well on both of these new additions to our staff tonight. But Adam comes to us from Doral, Florida, where he's worked for many, many years, and you can tell him about that. He has his master's degree in business administration. Was really there when Doral, I think, began as a city and was born as a municipality, and basically created from ground up a community standards division. So he brings tremendous experience to us. And prior to that, I think he served in the Navy, didn't you? Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay, I won't tell everything. Go ahead.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the City Council, residents. I just wanted to thank you all for the opportunity to join the City of Boynton Beach. The City of Boynton Beach is the city that I was born in. Not too long ago, as you can tell, I'm fairly young, but 38 years ago I was born in Bethesda East. My oldest daughter was also born at Bethesda East. I lived just outside and unincorporated near Park Vista High School, so I'm very excited to get to work in the city that I was born in, and really excited about the opportunity to work with all the fine men and women in the Community Standards Department that has welcomed me with open arms. And I look forward to doing many great things here in the city of Boynton Beach. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
All right. Thank you.
Sir, I'm going to be the first one to say this. You have a new community standards officer. Her name is Karen.
Mm-hmm.
She's working in District 2. I want to tell you, sir, she's doing a hell of a job. And she's out pounding the pavements every day, and I'm absolutely proud that she's in District 2. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome
Appreciate
aboard.
Thank you all.
Mayor, may I just take one quick minute to say thank you to Queen Esther
Yes.
for holding the fort down in our clerk's office for several months. And has done an outstanding job. As well as Vestigan Pierre, who has held community standards together for us, and he was delighted when Adam started. There you are, Pierre. I always call him Pierre, but his first name is Vestigan. So we call him by his last name because it's easier to say. But thank you both so very much for the very good work you do.
All right. Thank you. Next, we have another item that we just put on. You said it was the Palm Beach County Behavioral Coalition?
Behavioral Health Coalition, Alexa Nchekube.
All right. Would you like to please come up to the podium?
Good evening. I'm so tall. Thank you to the commissioners for inviting us to speak on behalf of the Palm Beach County Behavioral Health Coalition. In fact, in the last few weeks, we have just changed our name to encompass the vast majority of services that we offer. We started out in the 1980s just covering underage drinking, have spread to all substance awareness. So we were formerly known, you probably know us under the name the Palm Beach County Substance Awareness Coalition. And now, since we address substance prevention as well as HIV education and prevention, in addition to providing mental health first aid classes, so that we can, bring forth and break the stigma of both mental health and substance use issues. We do a variety of education, training, and advocacy in the community. And I honestly, one of our stellar programs is our Teen Coalition in Action program. And I'd like to turn it over to one of our young leaders. And she'd like to introduce what she'd like to propose for the city, because we know education is a component to making changes, but we also know that advocacy work also is a piece. And the things that we do are strategic, evidence-based, and we use numbers-driven.
Hello. Once again, thank you guys for allowing us to come here and present this to you. So my name is Chikube Chikuma, and I'm the Secretary of the Teen Coalition in Action, which, as she mentioned, works with the Palm Beach Behavioral Health Coalition. And our goal today is to help you guys understand the point of purchase ordinance. The point of the ordinance essentially is to make sure that any residents in Boynton Beach, which sells alcohol, including convenience stores, nightclubs, hotel bars, restaurants, anywhere that sells alcohol, has a sign that looks essentially like this, that states the law regarding the sale of alcohol to minors, which is, as you all know, is illegal to sell alcohol to people under the age of 21. And this issue is important because, as you guys probably know, alcohol is related to many of the major causes of death for teens, including poisonings, drowning, suicide, and homicide. And another thing that our coalition does is we host compliance checks, which essentially is when we work with the police department, and a member of our coalition, we ride with them to places that sell alcohol. And essentially, we go up to the counter and ask to purchase alcohol. And very often, these people will give us alcohol without even asking for ID. So in the city, it's extremely easy for teens to get a hold of alcohol, despite being underage. So this ordinance will help them understand the severity of underage drinking and help make this community a little bit safer. But about the actual poster, it's about the size of a typical sheet of paper, and it will have on it the number to call to report people who are breaking the law by selling or buying alcohol under the age of 21. And it will also have the penalties associated with breaking the law, including the $500 fine or possibly jail time. And it will also have the name of the coalition, and if any edits need to be made to the poster, we would be open to that as well. All posters will be funded through the coalition, as many as are needed. And thank you for listening.
Thank you. I have a question for you. What other cities are adopting this type of ordinance, and what kind of successes are you seeing over there?
Well, this ordinance has already been adopted by Boynton Beach, Green Acres, West Palm Beach, and unincorporated Palm Beach County. And we do get calls to the number that we mentioned. The number is 1877 means 21. And we get calls to reporting people who have broken the law. And like I said, the compliance checks, that is also a metric of measuring. So for Boynton Beach, it is relatively new.
And so the ordinance that you're talking about, is there a penalty if one of these businesses does not have the sign up?
Oh, yes.
The way the ordinance is written, it's not penalty-based, actually. It's trying to encourage businesses to comply to the law that's already in existence, while also building a village into the community. Because Palm Beach County has over 3,000 alcohol outlets, and only about 4% are checked each year. So you can imagine trying to find somebody who is doing something that is not intended is difficult. So there, in terms of the penalty, would only be if the compliance check was done and if the compliance check is done, whatever laws are already in existence. And again, this is about a reteaching tool. It's not about trying to put anybody out of business. It's not trying to be punitive. And in fact, actually, when we go out and check businesses and businesses who pass, we send them a letter of congratulations. And we've had businesses who've taken those letters and have posted them in their business, proud that they are doing the right thing.
Fantastic.
In addition, if you do fail, again, we want it to be a reteaching tool. So we offer an online responsible beverage server training. So we retrain the person, because it's not necessarily the business's fault. Maybe the person who was working didn't get the training tools that they needed. We want to be able to provide for that.
I do understand it's, you have some individuals that feel that they are well over the age of 21 that don't think that they need to be carded. And then you have other individuals that are under 21 that don't want to be carded. But I think this is something important that we have, because we do promote a brewery industry here, that everyone is responsible when they drink. We make sure that our police officers are out there at night making sure nobody's driving after drinking too much. I think this is something that we should have in our city. If it's not punitive to the businesses for not having them, and it's just something that's informative at no cost to them, I don't think this is restricting them selling alcohol at all. And so, if I could get if not any other questions for the coalition here, I'd like to entertain a motion to have the ordinance on our next agenda or future agenda items. Yes, Vice Mayor?
So I'm not really prepared to go into a discussion because it was a walked-on announcement and now it's turned into an ordinance.
It would be future agenda.
Could it be like a month in between? So if there is a desire to bring the ordinance forward by a majority of this commission, we're in the month of August. Should it come back in October? Or I guess the second meeting in September.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Commissioner McCray?
Thank you. One of the presenters made the statement that we're already doing it here in Boynton.
Oh, no, sorry. The cities I meant to mention were Boca Raton, Green Acres, and unincorporated Palm Beach County.
And West Palm Beach. West Palm Beach and City and Village of Palm Springs.
Well, I'm glad
and Delray Beach.
I'm glad we got that clarified, because I heard Boynton.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean
Okay, I'm making sure I heard Boynton. See, and we don't. That's why I'm saying we already have it while we're doing something else. But I'm going to go ahead and agree with Vice Mayor Katz on what he just said.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
If there's anything else from anybody else, if not, I would like to make a motion to direct staff to bring forward an ordinance as described by our speakers here today to be brought forward on October, you said?
The second meeting.
Second meeting of October.
September.
Right. September. And one more thing, can I get both your names for the record one more time?
All right. You want it to be spelled?
Yes,
please.
Yeah. All right. My first name is Chekube, which is CHEKUBE. And then you mean my last name? All right. Chukuma, which is CHUKWUMA. And for Miss Alexa Lee, that would be ALEXA space LEE.
All right. Thank you so much. And I want to know if to let you guys know that we also have a Boynton Beach Mental Health Committee, and they recently printed out these door hangers so that if they know of anybody who may need mental health awareness or assistance, we have all the information to contact. And so that's something that I'd like to share both with you and our audience. There's some flyers next to the agendas on the table.
Thank you. And in fact, actually, over the summer, we trained your summer camp staff in mental health first aid.
Oh, thank you.
Wonderful.
Mayor?
Yes.
As a point of clarification, I believe the presenters already have a draft ordinance that we have access to, or that you've sent to our city attorney, correct?
I've got a copy of it.
Okay, thank you.
I'll work from that.
Yep, perfect.
Right.
Mayor,
yes.
Commissioner Penserga has a motion on the floor. I'm going to second that motion.
Oh, thank you. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right. Moving forward to public audience. Individual speakers will be limited to 3-minute presentations. Please state your name and address for the record. And if you'd like to speak on a consent agenda item or an item that is on the agenda, please let us know.
Good evening, Suzanne Ross, Schoolhouse Children's Museum. With August upon us and school almost in session, the museum's busy summer season is coming to a close, and we thought you might be interested in an update about some of the activities. With Town Square in construction in full swing, there has been an effect on the museum, primarily memberships, birthday party bookings, and group visits. Through speaking with prospects, it seems uncertainty about access and parking due to construction, no outside play area until recently, are the two major hurdles that are slowing the bookings down. That said, however, and somewhat surprisingly, for both June and July, we actually have averaged 7% more general visitation at the museum. So what does that mean? For now and going forward, for now anyway, coupled with close attention to expenses, it means we're holding our own and we will end the third quarter in the black. The fourth quarter, with Ocean Avenue closed, is typically our slowest season, and that remains to be seen. Today, however, we were incredibly busy. Guests were parking on side streets and complaining at the front desk about the parking, which is actually a very good thing. Though we also thought you might be interested in that despite a few slower months, the construction, the dust, the intermittent road closures, and innumerable parking challenges, the museum has been singly responsible for bringing, since January, 20,845 people to downtown Boynton Beach. And by extension, we also serve as ambassadors for the Town Square project. So as always, we invite you to come play with us at the museum. Thank you.
I had a resident ask me a question. Her mother used to teach at the Boynton Beach Elementary School. And she was a little upset that she had to pay to go back to school. And that's the policy?
Number one, this is the first I've heard of it, but yes, guests do pay $5 admission per person. Babies under 1 are free, seniors are $4.50. Unless there's some special arrangement, everyone will pay an admission or they are members, at which point they can come in as often as they wish.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello, good evening. My name is Dr. Stephanie Hayden Adiemo. I reside at 2181 Southwest 15th Avenue, condo N102, Boynton Beach, Florida, 33426. I had one question and then one statement. My first question is, I sit on the library board as the vice president of the Boynton Beach Library Board, and I was asked to inquire about the boxes that we see around Boynton that says clothing for donation. We wanted to know, where does those funds go? So that's number one. And number two, I want to speak about the park that is currently being renovated and upgraded. I think it was this past week or the week prior, I saw a post by the CRA, because I follow the CRA, and it was talking about the amphitheater iron cage that was recently placed down and a considerably low-level platform. I don't know if it's a platform, but concrete that was laid down. And my question was to the CRA, whoever manages that site, is this the finished product for that? And my response that I got back was, I think I added Mr. Help me with your name again, I'm sorry. Your last name.
And Serga.
Thank you. And he said, reach out to the, I think, utilities, public works, utilities.
No, I said reach out to me via email, and I can forward your question to the appropriate person.
Right.
I think somebody
And
else responded to you afterwards.
the CRA. So whoever manages that site. So I basically said to Mr. P that I just wanted you to be included in the conversation because it's not really your area, but everyone sits on the podium. So I went to the internet because I like the internet. I like images. And I found what I remember going to that area by the library, the pavilion area, right? And so the stage was a certain distance from the floor. And so in my mind, because I'm analytical, I say, if this is completed, why would you have the harness over that area? Because you don't say something is incomplete and have that structure over it when people are laying and working. So my statement is that I've said to several people, it seems like this park is being done on a layaway plan, because I've been to several parks, Pence, Barrier Reef, you name it, and I've seen renovations on those parks more than 3 times since I've lived in Boynton, which is 2003 until now.
Excuse me, can you, is that the end of the statement? Your time's up.
I know, I heard it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, Dr. Hayden, before you leave, I believe there is a response to your question in regards to the bins. I think that could be quickly answered by staff here tonight.
I would need to get back to you and find out what revenues we've pulled in, if any, to date, and I don't believe they've been appropriated by the commission at this point. So
Has it been a year?
I don't think she's asking
would have to
what,
look.
she's
Okay.
just asking where are the funds going, so isn't it just going to our general
If we've received any right now into the general fund, but they have not, I think they're due to be appropriated by the commission as for community projects, but I don't
Yeah.
know that we've collected any. I just need to find out. I don't know off the top of my head right now.
It's ultimately at our discretion, whatever that dollar amount is over the course, I guess, of a fiscal year, to decide as a commission how to appropriate those funds for, the intent was for some sort of charitable or nonprofit use.
So the short answer is it's coming into our general funds, Dr. Hayden.
Can you repeat that again? I'm sorry, because I had stepped away from the podium because my time was up. Can you repeat that?
If you're speaking about the clothing bins that are, what's the name of that company?
It's out of Miami, I believe.
I don't know.
Florida Textile.
I don't remember.
Okay.
Florida Textile Recycling.
Florida Textiles, I believe, is the company, if that's the one that you're referencing, and
Yes, for those boxes.
the money is currently coming into our general fund.
General fund?
Correct.
Okay, I will let Craig know that at our next meeting. Okay.
And I believe staff can get back to you with an email in the morning with more specific answer.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is David Beasley. I live at 190 South Boulevard, Apartment B in Boynton. I recently wrote a letter to all of you about the building department and its bad reputation. I think it probably has the worst
Excuse me,
reputation
just
in
push
Palm
your
Beach
mic up
County.
a little bit. Just push your mic up.
Speak up, please.
Thank you.
I think it has a terrible reputation in the county with contractors and people I work with. I do want to say, though, it's not Mike Rumpf in the planning department. Ed Breeze and Mike are great. I've worked with them for years. But the building department's inconsistencies in comments, if I did the same room addition 10 times, I would get 10 different sets of comments. The code doesn't change. Why do I get 10 sets of comments? I also have some of the plan reviews I think are subbed out. They're done at night and so forth. If I have a comment that I have a question on, I can't find that person to ask that question. He's not there. Also, some of the stuff is so minuscule. Some of the comments are just so minuscule in the code, you have to look hard to even find it. And I just think my intent in writing that letter was not to do those 3 jobs. It wasn't really to do anything. I was hoping to improve the building department. And I guess that's it. Thank you.
I have a question. When you got your comments, did they cite our code?
Yes.
They did, so you were able to find where they cited it?
They normally do put a code number next to it.
Okay.
But in some instances, I've had a comment that said, draw a shower detail. So I asked the guy, why? He said, so I can make sure the shower slopes toward the drain. I don't know anybody that's going to put a shower in that's not going to slope toward the drain. I think that's ridiculous. There are a lot of other things like that are just unnecessary.
Okay.
And they create more work. They take more time to research, and so forth that I don't encounter in other building departments. I have no problem in Del Rey and the county and Green Acres and anywhere else. It's here. Okay. And this is the worst, and it has the worst reputation right now with contractors that I work with. And I don't want to see that. I've been here for 40 years, and I've been doing the same thing for 40 years. I came in the building department when it was a single-story building, and it was a long time ago, and I'd like to see it improved.
All right.
It was my
Thank
goal.
you so much for your input, and we appreciate it. And
thank you.
We'll take a look into it.
Thanks.
Good evening. My name is Harry Wood. Whoa, thank you for this new audio system, Larry. My name is Harry Woodworth. I'm at 685 Northeast 15th Place. First thing I'd like to do this evening is thank Adam and Crystal for joining the city. I can't tell Adam how long we have waited for someone to be in charge of that department. And Inca and you will become good friends very quickly. The other thing is thank you for this audio system. It is 100% better after 2 days of listening to the budget things in distorted audio that you can barely understand. And thank you, Commissioner McCrae, for mentioning my name and Inca for the car wash. But I got to be honest, the heavy lifting was done by Community Standards and Lori. We just keep being your eyes and ears, and we hope that continues to work well because there's just all kinds of opportunity on North Federal. The good news is it's getting better, so we like that a lot. So thank you very much for mentioning that. I appreciate it. I know it's not on the agenda anymore, so I can talk to it, and that was item 12B.
It is. It's
still on.
It's still on the agenda for tonight? Oh, I can't talk to it. Then I can talk to it later. Okay, then I'll be back. Thank you.
.407 Northeast 17th Avenue, Boynton Strong. I'm here on behalf of Boynton Strong tonight, and we want to give a appreciation from the city of Boynton and all its employees for helping us out on our school supplies for back to school. We will be doing 2 locations tomorrow, one at the Carolyn Sims Center and one at the Ezel Health. We should be able to put, all the kids to have good supplies, and I want to say thank you for all the city and their employees who all pitched in and made this happen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor.
Yes.
Excuse me. I like to say that Boynton Strong.
Oh, Tory Orr.
Thank you. I'd like to say to you all, I have been on the back burner, but I've been watching what you all have been doing. I want to say, I want to tell you all personally, the young men that work with you, thank you for doing a 360-degree turnaround here in this city. You all have been doing positive things, and I'm standing behind you all. Thank you. Even with your Wednesday night activities, I know about them.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Ray Whiteley, 223 Northeast 12th Avenue. I'm also representing Healing Hands Ministries in Boynton Beach as well. The reason for my visit tonight, I was going to speak on something, but it's on the agenda. But I would also like to tell the city thank you. I did see the outreach. It's an awesome initiative. The community thanks you. Everyone thanks you. The other concern that I have, and I know that it's not a commission issue and it's a CRA issue, but because the CRA board and the commission are the same people, if I'm not able to make it back next week, then you would have heard the concerns that I share. And I am echoing the comments or the concerns from the community. My telephone has been ringing off the hook for like the last 3 or 4 days, not only from people in Boynton Beach, but Delray, Lake Worth, West Palm Beach, Riviera, about the picture that was posted on the CRA's page. And it's concerning. Now, having been a part of the conversation, not a part of the implementation, but I was aware that the amphitheater was going to go there. But I didn't know that it was going to look like that. I think that it came from a good place. I don't think that it was a malicious thing to say, you know what, I'm going to throw this here or whatever. I don't believe that. I really believe that it came from a good place. And thank you for whoever had that idea not to let it go to waste and put it there. But now that it's there, we have to make it, it's our responsibility to make it reflective of Boynton Beach. The way that it looks now compared to how it looked on Ocean Avenue, it's a disservice to not only District 2, but the Boynton Beach. I think that photo, once it's shared, and it's coming back to me from people in positions in other cities. They're like, yo, what the heck is going on down there? You know, I do think that we'll do the right thing. I really do. But I just wanted to hold true to my commitment to the citizens that do trust me to speak for them, that if we leave it like that, it just would not be a good look for us as a city. We're better than that. I've been a part of the conversation for years now, and I've watched how the city grew, and it grew, and it grew to where it is now, that when I go out of state, I'm bragging about Boynton Beach and Boynton Beach's commission. It's two places that I will always serve where my heart is. That's Jamaica, where I was born, and Boynton Beach that I was raised and I continue to love. So I'm praying that we do the right thing.
Thank you.
We do the right thing. Thank you very much.
And, you know, I was in Greece and Italy, and I saw what an amphitheater looks like. It looks very different than what we had in Ocean Avenue. You know, I spoke with Colin Groff about that, and they told us about the Americans with Disability Act requirements for that type of amphitheater that we had on Ocean Avenue, dealing with the amount of square footage or the amount of seats available. And the reason why we have that type of amphitheater in a neighborhood park is that it is not meant to be the big amphitheater that we had in Ocean Avenue, because we're going to have another amphitheater as part of our city center project. So what we're doing is that before I got on this commission, there used to be parties at Sarah Sims, if I'm not mistaken. And this amphitheater is going to have the amount of wattage so that people can still have those types of family parties. And that's what the whole point of that is, that it's going to be still a family park. It is not supposed to be a festival park. That is going to be part of our city center, because that is able to hold the amount of people and not be next to a lot of single family residential, because you'll have the different parking garages. So it is a lot of perception of what this amphitheater is compared to what it was. And I believe that our staff, both the city and the Sierra, are doing their best ability to make sure that everyone is pleased with the future outcome in the many years to come, because we don't want to program this amphitheater to have all different types of events for Saturdays and Sundays, disturbing the people that live next to it.
I understand. Let's just say that I'm sure that we'll do the right thing. And I'm sure that everybody's doing their best to do the right thing. And unfortunately, Mayor, perception is reality.
It is.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Yeah.
In regards to this conversation, I would like staff to come back to the commission because even though this park is in the CRA, it is a city project. So I'd like for staff to bring back to us what their vision is, finalized vision for that amphitheater, because again, I do understand the concern that residents had where they see that amphitheater, or they were told that the amphitheater was being moved or relocated, and now they see a downsized version of that. And I do understand that there are surrounding neighbors that live near that park, but there are also surrounding neighbors that live near Ocean Avenue, and yet that park or that amphitheater was still in existence. So even if not the exact replica of what was on Ocean Avenue, I'd like to understand what the finalized project of what that amphitheater is in staff's perspective. And I'd also like to get some numbers back in terms of what plans do we have for the future of potential development for that amphitheater, for that park, what could be done and what cost estimates would look like in regards to what the residents potentially were expecting for what was told in terms of we're getting an amphitheater in this park.
Yes, Commissioner McCray.
Thank you. I think, first of all, the word really got out, wrong about it. It's going to be an amphitheater. I'm just saying for that park, I'm just saying, my whole take is that, first of all, we need to consider, the usage of the amphitheater downtown on Ocean Avenue. It wasn't that heavily used, and I'm just saying, staff, when you bring back your report, bring back how many events that they had down there. And my whole take is that I'm one of those citizens that do live around where that amphitheater is going to be, and I'm just saying, even without that structure over there, we was putting up with noise, and I don't want my quality of life to be interfered with the way I live, and we will discuss it further. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment regarding that? Vice Mayor?
I just want to praise staff and the city manager. If you're not familiar with a little bit of background, I'll be as quick as I can about this. Through cost savings in the project, tens of thousands of dollars were allocated to move and place the canopy from the amphitheater on Ocean Avenue in the park, which was never anticipated, never planned for. When those plans were brought before this commission, nobody ever spoke up and said, where's the amphitheater? So nobody on this commission advocated for it. It was never in the plans, but it exists now. And we appropriated an additional $40,000 from the CRA to ensure that it was going to look nice once it opened up. So it's, creativity and ingenuity from staff to, in the midst of a major project, put one more addition to it. And I think that when the park opens, which is not open right now, I think the community will be very satisfied with the park as a whole, and also the addition of the ability to have small performances in that park. So again, credit to staff where credit is due.
Is it my turn now?
Yes.
Okay. Well, God bless you all. I just got back from Peru and from Poland, and it's good to get back home and to see that I believe our city is in magnificent shape. I will exclude District 2 that needs tremendous attention, and I will just repeat my vision that that part of the city and other parts could be like an airport, so that only law enforcement officers would have any weapons. It's especially relevant in view of the terrible violence in El Paso and in Ohio. And as you all know, I am running for mayor, so although the city is incredibly good, we're going to make it even better. In that spirit, I want to keep alive, and I think Lake Worth is helping me, the concept that we're sitting on a gold mine, we're sitting on enormous amounts of energy in the Gulf Stream. I think it was tested in Dania Beach, and I think it's being attempted in Lake Worth to put turbines at the bottom of the ocean and obtain massive energy. And so they kind of stole the idea from us, but they're welcome to try it. We'll do it when I get elected or some other time. As some of you may be interested in what I am doing, now up to 5,000 people on Facebook, so I cannot take any more friends, but so you're all my family. Because I am considered one of the inventors of the World Wide Web, in 3 years, I am a candidate for a United Nations position. The Secretary General position is open. And I am a dual citizen of United States and Poland, so I'm eligible to run. And I've been making contacts in many countries and getting reasonable support. But back here at home, I honestly tell you that the mayor's vision of a small fishing town, quiet and good to think and work, appeals to me more and more. And I think it's a good place to come back and think. As for the University of Boynton, we don't have much of a building, but we have over 100 students, and there's no tuition, so I pick them up, some very talented people all over the world. Thank you very much. That's all.
Minister Bernard Wright, 713 Northwest 2nd Street, President of Bernard Wright Ministry of Real Talk Radio and the Robert A. Wells Foundation. As you all know, and before Commissioner Katz and Commissioner Christina Romulus, before you all got on the dais, I've been in the conversation about this amphitheater. I don't know why you are saying this. We can go to the minutes about this. We for years, and our executive director back there, Mike Simon, would tell you for years, I have been advocating for a water park. We couldn't get it. Y'all gave us all kind of explanations why we couldn't get a water park because of the, the management of it and things of that nature. But this amphitheater has been part of the conversation. I've pushed for it for years. We finally did get that. If you can't get us anything else, we can get that because we can generate funds in there with concerts and things of that nature. It's in the minutes. This is not nothing just come up. You all know we wanted an amphitheater. It's not an amphitheater if you don't have a stage. Don't use America's Disability Act as that will prevent you from just get a ramp. It's easy, just concrete. Not that much. We're talking about $1.7 million in that park, and what do we have? It's great. I love it. I saw it. I lived 2 houses down. I, too, Commissioner McCray, and I advocated for your campaign, which made history, and I'm running for City Commissioner District 2 coming, but I'm telling you this. You knew about this amphitheater. You was in the community meetings with me, along with Minister Whiteley and others knew about this, but we always being disenfranchised behind the 8 ball, always get the crumbs off the table. You're talking about Town Square and an amphitheater down there. That's White Town. We're talking about a cultural, historical city that my great-grandfather had the privilege of founding, the first street school and city. You're talking about noise. You're talking about having a great amphitheater over down there on Ocean Avenue, but not over here in the heart of Boynton, District 2. That would serve us well. I don't understand that. That's too astute. It is, to God be the glory, racism in its rawest term. We always get the less, not the best. An amphitheater is an amphitheater, not a fancy pavilion. And I've seen it. It's a great park. We're going to have great times out there. But not with that, what you're talking about, giving us as an amphitheater. We're talking about generating wealth in the community. You'd understand? And that's what it would do. A concert. People don't want to go on the ground and perform on the ground. It's not even psychologically effective. It's not psychologically effective. They're talking about, I'm finna go and perform on the ground. No, we need a stage. And I trust that you all would do the right thing. Don't give us half of it. Give us the whole thing. By the grace of God. God bless you all, and you have a great day.
Good evening.
Excuse me, Lynn, I don't think this is the time to speak.
Oh, okay.
Because
I got to get them back. So.
Is this regarding the community support funds?
Yes.
Did we move it up? Can we just?
Is there anyone else that would like to speak for public audience? Seeing none, public audience is now closed. Moving on to administrative. We have one open. We have 2 applicants for the Recreation and Parks Advisory Board. Vice Mayor Katz, would you like to appoint someone?
I'll recommend Joshua Van Leuven.
All right. Any discussion from the board? Seeing none. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Seeing none. Appointment is approved. Moving on to community support funds. This is Commissioner McCrae. Would you like to take this item?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I would like to do a disclaimer. This is being held at the St. John Missionary Baptist Church, where I am a member, but this has nothing to do with St. John. This has to do with the community of the city of Boynton. All youth here in this city, and I wanted to be noted for that. The reason I took part in after you hear Ms. Leverett give out her speech, and I just want to say to the youth that's here, thank God that they canceled National Night Out, because I know y'all was going to go over there. And I just want to say to you all, thank you for coming down here tonight to let them know what you all are doing here in this city. All are not bad. Also, while I'm giving a point out, Ms. Leverett, she's a graduate of Florida State, just in case any of y'all want to get carried away, but she'll speak now. Thank you.
All right.
I am a Gator.
Oh, you're not a Gator?
Ooh, state the one I hate.
Well,
Good evening. How is everybody?
Well, see, that lets you know I don't know everything about her, okay?
Good evening to the mayor, as well as the other officers and commissioners here. My name is Lynn Leverett, And right now, we're just going to do a very quick and small presentation of what is getting ready to happen at St. John Missionary Baptist Church. We've always had a deep desire and a concern to reach out to the community and reach outside the walls of our church, to bring our students in to engage in programs that we know can help and assist. And this is the very first actual conference that we put together where we reached outside within the Palm Beach County area. We've actually been advertising up in West Palm Beach as well as Lake Worth and Boynton and Delray to bring some of our kids together in what we call at-risk teenagers or kids. One of the things that we talked about doing in quite a few of our workshops, one is leadership, one is financial empowerment, and the other one is social justice, because we believe that the YZ generation are the ones that speak out very strongly. So our goal is to listen to their concerns, and from that youth conference, and we also have a conference for our 5 to 12-year-olds, and at the end of the conference, they participate in what we call a Keeping It 100 discussion, where they actually get to talk about some of the things that they're concerned about. From that, we can take that information and start building from the church, which is the foundation, and build programs in our community so that we can start helping our students, as well as not just Boynton Beach, but around in the surrounding areas. Now, I brought some of our students here. These are some of our leaders here at the church, and they've actually participated going outside with the book drive. They actually advertised their conference to other children that they felt it would be beneficial for them to actually come and attend. So I'm just going to have one or two of them to come speak, because we are getting text messages. We got to get them back over to the church because they have rehearsal for Saturday.
Sarah Thurston. Sarah Thurston. I believe that the donation to the youth conference would be beneficial, because the kids that are attending the youth conference, some of them may not have like food to eat, some are homeless, and some don't have the financial, some don't have the money to survive on a daily basis. So we just want to gather the youth in the community and the surrounding areas of Boynton Beach and different cities so that they could come together and be one.
Good evening. I'm Kirsten Ford, and for our youth conference that is coming up, I wanted to say that this donation would also not only help us financially or other at-risk teenagers that we've reached out to financially, but also start spreading our faith more and be able to cover more ground on what we're trying to do and trying to teach. Not only just spiritually, but mentally, saying like with the leadership classes and the social justice and financial empowerment that really needs to be taught, because in a lot of schooling that I've done personally, and that a lot of friends that I have and just students in general, I don't see as many financial empowerment classes as starting, at least for young ages, that's not in senior or junior high school level. And I feel that it is important that we should start teaching this and reaching out to students and a lot of our youth in our community for this. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tamara Johnson, and the youth conference that's coming up, I feel it's very important to what we're moving on to doing, what we're going into. It's really the foundation of what we're hoping to do. And some kids, well, this generation is like, it's like times are getting worse and worse as generations go on. And I feel like we have to start now where our mentors are still here. So when the time comes that all our mentors are gone, that we can be able to stand strong in what we do and stuff like that. And I find it very important because it's really important for us to maintain our steady way of life. That's what I'm trying to say. Thank you.
Okay, Mayor, thank you. I'd like to say that this was presented to the city manager, and it stated that, the city itself did not have funds that they could do a program like this, but we could go to our discretionary funds. And I said, since I have $1,000 left, I'm just saying I'd like to use my $1,000 to invest in the future and the president of this city. So that's why I told her to walk it on tonight so that we could at least, invest in them. I have $1,000 left in my account, so that we could tell them, we wish them well and that we support their endeavors. And I'd like for the chief and also those that have other youth programs to make sure that y'all remember Miss Lynn Leverett, and she's a Gator, and that and that you have a lot of youth programs that, you all need to be, this should be the contact person. I'm just saying because she brought some of her babies here tonight. That's what we call them. Thank you.
All right. So do I have a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Congratulations.
Good luck. Thank you.
I know you have to go. I want to give a round of applause to all the students that spoke. Speaking into a microphone gets easier every time you do it. So look forward to hearing from you again in the future. Thank you. All right. Moving on to consent agenda. Is there any items that the commission would like to pull?
Motion to approve.
All right. I'd like to pull item D just to have a little discussion. Is there any other items to be pulled? Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. The reason why I brought this up is that we got $529,000 of federal funding, and this is one of the reasons why we want to make sure that everyone fills out the census next year, is that part of that money is based upon the number of residents that are in our city. One of the things that I don't think that was funded that I'd like to see about possibly funding in next year's CDBG funding would be child care. And so I just would like to let our coordinator know that to look into helping with the child care, because I know that we have a lot of different child care services and companies in Boynton Beach, but just to make sure that everyone has access to the preschool and daycare in Boynton Beach. And so if there isn't any other comments, may I have a motion to approve?
Before we finish with our comments, I'd like to say to Miss Octavia Sherrod, I'm just saying, just in case y'all don't know, this will be also one of her last meetings, here with us in regards to this. Octavia, I'm going to be coming out of office. I'm going to be dancing on the side of you, kid. Don't worry about it.
All right, well.
Thank you, Octavia.
Octavia, why don't you say your name and introduce yourself.
Octavia Sherrod. I am the soon-to-be former community improvement manager.
All right, well, yes, like Commissioner McRae said, thank you so much for your years of service to the city. I also want to give you a round of applause for all that you've done.
Thank you all. I do want to take 2 or 3 minutes to say how grateful
Octavia, before you speak, maybe this will encourage you to stay another 5 years.
I am not that. No, but actually, it has indeed been a pleasure to serve. Not very many people get to do what I have done for the last 30 years of my life. Because of the city and our entitlement, I have been able to help improve the quality of life for the residents of Boynton Beach. I lived here for 27 years. I've actually worked 30 years here, 29 of them as a regular citizen. I started out as a contract employee. I've had some of the most amazing coworkers. When I deal with my peers throughout the state, no one has a finance department like the City of Boynton Beach's finance department. And it's been like that forever. And I am especially quite fond of Mr. Howard. Mike Rumpf has been my friend and my brother. We started, he was here just a few minutes before I came. So I kind of grew up with him, although I'm older than he is. There's been so many people. I've had some of the best city managers that I've worked for. None of them have been bad. Lori has been so supportive to the programs that we implemented, and she always had our back. And this commission has been very good too, although they've had me on edge sometimes. I'm excited and I'm saddened, and I'm going to bug them all the time. Thanks to my coworkers, in my group, I was #1 in the state of Florida for my March of Dimes. That they started hiding under desks every time they saw me coming, because it always cost them money. But I'm grateful, and thank you all.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm off the hook.
Good luck.
Did we vote on that?
Haven't signed the papers yet.
Yeah, we did. All right. Moving on to consent bids and purchases over $100,000. May I have a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Moving forward to unfinished business, Commissioner Pitserga is requesting the Commission reconsider the following action the Commission took on July 2nd, 2019, award of insurance brokerage services. May I have a motion for reconsideration?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
It's 4-1. Item is under consideration. Commissioner Pitserga.
Yes, so I asked for this item to be reconsidered because it was brought to my attention that the applicants were not properly informed that their item was being discussed. And when that happens, they were unable to be present and to mount a defense. Furthermore, Julie Olsbury was not present or not available at that time. And so I felt that in order for us to do business in the city, the best policy is to make sure that the process is consistent and nobody is blindsided. And so today, by reconsidering this item, we ensure that we have the ability, the opportunity to ask the questions that we otherwise did not ask. This is not to say that the vote may be any different today, but at least the process is consistent, and that is the way we conduct business.
All right. Yes, Commissioner Romulus.
Mayor, from what I understand, the reaching out to the applicants is something, I believe that's a courtesy that's done by the city, not a requirement. If that's something that the commissioner would like to see, then maybe we should bring that up as a policy decision in terms of what we do and how we inform applicants when their item is being brought up or discussed on the agenda. So that maybe perhaps can fix the issue moving forward if we want to be consistent in how we approach the situation.
And I have a question for our attorney. So when we publish the agenda, is that, just the regular agenda? That's not notified in the papers like our stuff for planning and zoning. Is that correct?
No, it would be the responsibility of somebody who wants to know what's on the agenda to look and see what's on the agenda.
And so, but we do have constructive knowledge of it because of our website that after 5 p.m. after 5 p.m. on Friday, it is up and running. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And the part is that we do have the directors, but as a city of this, we always have people that are in backup. And so, Commissioner Pitserga, I admire you for making sure that we have the best information possible for when we make the decisions. And so, what other information would you like?
I'd just like to hear from staff. Julie, if you may, I think your opinion, being the position that you hold, right?
Thank you for the opportunity. First, to address the issue with my not being in attendance, I was on vacation. I was not aware that this item was going to be placed on the agenda. Sure, that's part of my fault, but I will say that we've had some transition in purchasing. We just hired a new purchasing manager, so normally we would have that communication, and this time it didn't happen, and that's okay. But normally I would have preferred to have been here when an item that was going to impact a department that I work for would be on the agenda. So have my assurance going forward that I'll make sure to be here or have somebody from my department be
Julie, when I
represented.
looked at the scoring
Yes, sir.
tabulation, I could see that the others in the team had scored approximately the same, but you showed the greatest amount of discrepancy in your scoring. So could you tell us a little bit about your reasoning for the
Sure.
discrepancy?
It's kind of because we all approach the scoring differently because we don't get to confer with each other prior to meeting. I just tend to take a very systematic approach to mine where, for example, the first person who gets the highest, if the category is 30 points, I might give them 30, and then the next person's 25, and the next person's 20. Other people, when they're doing it, they may say, well, the category's 30, I'm going to give the first person 30 points, the second person 29, the third person 28. So that's all a personal thing. I just make sure that I'm consistent in my rating throughout, and I think everybody else employs that same methodology, but those methodologies just might be a little different.
All right.
Any other specific questions?
Yes, tell us about, you ranked Gehrig number 1.
I did rank Gehring number 1. I believe the other members did as well. That was our risk manager and our director of finance, who are also on the team. We've had the opportunity to work with Gehring. They are the incumbent. They have, provided excellent services for us with regard to our risk consulting. They were able to access markets that Gallagher, who was our prior administrator or TPA in the past, consultant in the past, wasn't able to get into that market.
Is the value of that greater?
The value of that is tremendous because they were actually able to significantly reduce our insurance premiums for the insurance plans that we have on our excess and our workers' comp and those rates. But in addition to that, they were also able to secure us with a 2-year rate guarantee, which is actually carrying through the remainder of this year and through September 30th, 2020. So they've done a lot of work for us at this point. I don't have any experience with PREA for working for them, so I can't give any testimony to what their work product is or isn't. I can only tell you with the two that I've had the experience working with.
All right. Commissioner McCray.
Thank you, Julie. While you're there, I'm just saying you said what I needed to hear. The insurance premiums, they saved us money.
They did.
How much money did they save us?
I don't know exactly off the top. I want to say it was a couple $100,000, about $200,000.
$200,000. Well, when I voted, I didn't vote for that other company. I wish you would have been here because I voted for the company that we have been doing business with, and I feel like a person, who works with somebody daily, and they know them better than we do. I'm not saying we're sitting up here as casting votes, and I'm just saying, and I wish you'd have been here likewise because you could have been stronger because I voted for the company that you recommended, and the reason I voted for it was because I trusted you. Why? Because you work with them daily, not us. Thank you.
Thank
you. Vice Mayor.
Just to echo what Commissioner McCray said, because I also supported the recommendation from the screening panel. It's been brought back to the agenda for reconsideration at a minimum for a further discussion, so I'd be wasting an opportunity not to lobby for that third vote. Again, even though the final scores were negligible between the first and second place, as noted at the last meeting when we discussed this a month or so ago, the second place score was kind of juiced up by a lower cost, so it was the cost factor that made it a negligible final score, not in my opinion, but factually. So in terms of the merit and the recommendation from you and from the panel who screened the applicants, I'm not ashamed to admit that there's a lot of technical stuff that comes before us, and if we don't adhere to expert advice from qualified personnel in the city, I worry that there's a slippery slope where cost becomes the only factor and merit becomes a secondary factor. So with the reconsideration on the table, I would urge anyone who voted against the Gehring Group to reconsider their vote I won't make any motions because it's Commissioner Pensurga's item, but I think that, again, nobody should be ashamed to admit that being an elected official doesn't mean you're an expert on insurance brokering, but people are. So I trust the people who are in staff, and I urge a reconsideration of the vote.
The two things is that we have both of those applicants here. Are you willing to give them an opportunity for a 3-minute presentation?
Absolutely.
For
myself, of course.
Yes. Commissioner McCray, do we have? Okay. So I'd like to ask. I guess the Garing Group's already sent us an email, but you would like to go first? Yeah. So.
Good evening. My name is Brian Cottrell, and I'm with Public Risk Insurance Advisors, a firm you ranked #1 in your July 2nd meeting. For that, I'd like to say thank you, and for the two dissenting votes, I'd like to give you some information tonight that may sway your thinking. Our agency started in 1992. We only specialize in public entities. We've grown to be one of the largest independent agencies in Florida with over $110 million in premium for our public entity clients. We insure over 73 cities, 25 counties, 7 school districts, over 150 special districts. We include such cities as Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Davie, Lauderhill, Margate, Coconut Creek, Lake Worth Beach, Jupiter, all through the state. And we also insure the state of Florida for all their state-owned property. We place probably $35 billion in total property value. So we understand the insurance markets. We understand your exposures. I had the pleasure of working with Chuck Magazine in the 90s for about 8 years as an insurance broker here, so I'm familiar with your insurance. We're also the largest agent for Preferred, your current carrier, by a factor of 6. Over half the business they write in the state is through our agency, and the other half is large placements of independent self-insured programs and so forth. So we have the expertise and the knowledge. One of the things we noticed in the RFQ was a copy of the policy was included. One of the things we do is we go through the coverages and look what's in there. And one thing that struck me was you have over 70 vehicles that are valued over $100,000 to $900,000. And currently, for physical damage, they're rated for actual cash value. If you have a loss, they're depreciated by how they are, how many miles, etc. But for an easy email to the underwriter, we can change that to agreed amount. And so if you have a $500,000 fire truck insured, if you have a total loss, you get $500,000. We've had more than one large value vehicle damaged going through an intersection and response and so forth. So that gap in coverage there can be very costly when you have to go replace that vehicle. But again, we always ask for the opportunity to interview with RFQs. Julie hadn't had a chance to meet us yet and get to know us, but we can certainly bring our team down and if not now, but in the future, to fully explain our programs and our capabilities. Are there any questions? Yes, sir.
Right. I don't have a question, but I'm glad that you spoke about our risk manager, Mr. Magazine, and when Mr. Magazine was working for the city and he was alive, he spoke very highly of your company, and I'm glad, you called his name because I was one of the elected officials who sat under Mr. Magazine when he was our risk manager. I supported your company then, and I'm supporting your company now.
I thank you, sir.
For you, sir.
All right. Thank you. All right, Mr. Garing.
Good afternoon. My name is Kurt Garing. I'm the CEO of the Garing Group, and Rodney Lewis here is with me, who is your senior benefit consultant, who I really give a lot of the credit for the savings that you've experienced. The biggest thing I want to talk about, and I really appreciate the fact that the council supports staff because it was a lengthy process and a lot of technical information to go through, and not to get into insurance information here tonight, but there was a couple of statements made at the last meeting that we want to clarify. And I think the most important thing that sets our firm apart is that we also only do public sector, but more importantly, we have access to markets that our competitor doesn't. The most important one is the Florida League of Cities. When we have access to the Florida League of Cities, we have access to administrative rights, negotiating, and things like that. The reason that's important is that the firm that you have now is the other trust in the state of Florida, which I think is large enough to be able to provide coverages here. So that's called leverage, that's called negotiating. And because we have that leverage, I think, number one, that's part of why we were able to get that savings initially. And number two, that entity is still out there hungry for your business, and that's Negotiating Cloud. We have access to that market because of how long we've been in the state of Florida, how strong we are in the Palm Beach County area as well. The other statements that I wanted to make was that because we do public service or public entities, we know what other entities are doing in the area, and I think that's also part of the importance of negotiating. I'd like to turn it over to Rodney also for a couple statements as well.
Thank you. We've had the privilege of working with Julie and the rest of your staff here for the last 5 years, and as she said, we've been able to really use that same leverage to reduce the costs that the city has been paying for its insurance coverages. I think there was a little confusion in the earlier statement. The Gehring Group was the #1 rated company before the re-ranking, and I think that's where the confusion. So Chuck Magazine was someone that we worked with and we thought very highly of as well, and we thought he did a great service to this city, and we've had the privilege of working with all the staff members since then. One of the great things that we also provide with our services is additional risk management services that are directly a part of what the Gehring Group does, not a part of what the carrier provides. So if those services we provide to you are not beholding to the specific carrier, so that if we have an opportunity to further cut costs for the city or further enhance its coverages and we move to another carrier, those services are not lost. You still have the safety and loss control services we provide. You still have the legislative and education services that we provide. We go above and beyond, and we are with your staff members all year round. We don't just show up one time of the year when it's time for renewal. We are active parts of your regular monthly safety committee meetings. We're active parts. We conduct on-site safety and work comp inspections of all your facilities.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor.
Yes, Commissioner McCray.
Thank you. I'd just like to say, to the group that just spoke, I'm glad that you made the statement that, you work with Florida League of Cities, but, sir, that is not a good testimony for me. The first group they gave cities that I'm familiar with, and that has a lot of weight on me. Florida League of Cities, I'm just saying, does not have a lot of weight on me. I'm just saying because they choose to do what they want to do. My whole take is the testimonies that came from that first group about Broward County, Dade County, also the state of Florida, that has more weight than anything else. Thank you.
So I'll ask Jim, do we need a new motion?
You do.
Okay.
Mayor, for clarification, who was the first group?
First group that spoke to us tonight was Gallagher, who won the contract on July 2nd.
No.
I'm sorry, public risk management. I was reading it wrong. Thank you.
Okay.
So I need a motion for one of them.
Yes. My motion is to award this bid to the Gehring Group.
Second that motion.
All right. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry. All those opposed? Nay. Commissioner McCray?
Aye.
Okay. Vote is 3-2.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Moving on to new business. Vice Mayor Katz has requested to discuss future Dogs on the Beach events. May I have that item removed from the table?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Vice Mayor, would you like to begin?
Yeah, so I just wanted to bring this back up because we held an event last December. Unfortunately, I was out of town on a road trip with my dog, so I did not get to attend the Dog Beach. But I was there in spirit. I supported this at the onset, some sort of trial event based on responses from staff, responses from participants. It seemed overwhelmingly, with one or two exceptions, that people had positive reviews of the event that took place. And again, since it happened last December, and you got to pick and choose your moments during the Florida season, you don't want to do stuff in the summer with dogs at the beach because it's too hot. There's turtle season, so I figured now is an opportune time to retouch base on this with Wally and Parks and Rec to see if there's an opportunity to either hold another event or to schedule a handful of events. I'm not trying to take the big leap to what I would ultimately love to see, which is some sort of daily hour availability, dusk, dawn type, end of the day, beginning of the day stuff, but baby steps I'd like to see, if not a duplication of what was last year, maybe 2 or 3 events spread out over a time period so it's not a burden on staff, but it provides people multiple opportunities to engage in this type of event, which was well received.
Yeah, I'd like to second that, and that we continue with the dog beach on a more frequent basis. I know that we had one last year. I'd like to see hopefully 3 this year, and at a minimum 2. The Saturday morning between 9 and 12, I was there. I felt that it was a great event. Wayne was there. Everybody made sure to pick up. Based upon your testimony, you made sure that you did a walkthrough to make sure the beach was clean. And I feel that it is definitely an added benefit to the city of Boynton Beach having our own beach to allow dogs there on that occasion. I know that the opponents to it are very loud. However, the majority of people are for having dogs on the beach. Commissioner McCray.
Thank you. My question is that you said we're only going to have 2 events a year?
I'd like to have 3, but I'd like to go from 1 to, at a minimum, 1 to 2.
Just want to make sure I'm clear on it because my answer is still no. Thank you.
All right. Commissioner Pinsurga.
I'm in favor of this as well. I'm in favor of increasing it to maybe 2 or 3 as well. My question is, how will this affect any of the turtles on the beach?
Right. Wally Majors, Recreation and Parks Director. We would certainly be amenable to having 2 or 3 events during the year. The big challenge during this time of the year, of course, is turtle nesting season.
So yeah.
And, with
just
that being
away from it.
Correct.
Pardon me.
We'll just schedule it away from.
Yeah, as long as we can do that, I think certainly we can apply the same parameters that we had last time in terms of having the fencing to restrict the dogs, not 100%, but for the most part between areas that would allow the public to have one end of the beach and then keeping them away from the county side on the other side, if we keep it in the same manner that we did last time. But yeah, during this time of the year, the biggest challenge would be that I could not guarantee that we could keep the dogs away from any turtle nests. So I would just ask that if we could be allowed to do it after turtle nesting season, then I would have no problem applying the same, again, parameters that we did last time.
Wally, what are the turtles nesting months?
It goes from March through the end of October.
Okay. So between November and February?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
All right. And I'd like it, to see if we can get 3 this year. One of the things that I saw when I went to the Lake Ida Dog Park was that there was sponsors as soon as you get in there. And so I want to know if the Parks and Recs Department would be able to look to help get sponsors for the event, the different veterinarians that we have and dog grooming places, to see if we can't have them help volunteer and give them recognition for volunteering.
And the bulk of the cost for the event was the labor.
Yeah.
We didn't necessarily have any costs other than that. So even in terms of sponsors, we'd have to define how that revenue collected would help offset any, again, expenses beyond that. But regardless, yeah, we could certainly squeeze 3 events between the time frame that it's not turtle nesting season. We could probably find a few sponsors that we could incorporate into the program. So again, with the experience that we had with the prior trial run, I feel pretty confident that we could do another successful round of events.
All right. May I have a motion to put 3 dog beach events for next fiscal year?
So move.
Second.
Discussion.
Yes.
I don't want anybody to go away tonight saying that I don't like dogs. I have 2. I have Grace and Mercy. But I was just under the impression, and I am not under the impression, they said that when dogs are on the beach, they swallow salt water and they throw up. So that's why my vote will be no. Thank you.
All right.
I'll also add in there that I have as a disclaimer that I do have a dog as well. I like dogs, just not on the beach.
All right. Thank you. Any further discussion from the board? All in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
Vice Mayor? I got a thumbs up from him. The motion passes 3-2. And Wally, before you go, I was at the beach, I think 2 Saturdays ago, and I saw the tractor burying the seaweed that we have on the beach. And I want to thank you for seeing that has happened. It was kind of reminding me of the days when I lived up north and you saw the snowplow clearing it, that everybody was just happy to see him cleaning up the beach. And so it was done around Saturday at 11, and that way everybody got to see it. But with that, the issue is that people are sometimes close to the tractor. So I want to know, is it possible to do it earlier in the morning?
Yeah, we can certainly reach out to the vendor, and he does serve other areas besides just us. So, and that is a conversation that we had with him, because I noticed him too when we did the surfing event a couple weeks ago. So, yeah, we certainly think that that's an appropriate request.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. Okay. Moving on to item 11B, I'd like to share some information that I obtained on my trip to Farindola, and also request the Commission's consideration of naming Farindola, Italy as a sister city. So, as you can see, Farindola is about 2.5 hours car ride northeast of Rome. I was able to go over, it's called the Apennine Mountains. And as we were driving over there, the government of Italy created a new autostrada, or highway, to get over there. And so the drive was fairly easy. And on the drive there, you got to see the highest peak of the Apennines, the Gran Sasso. As you can see, Farindola is on the corner of one of the green areas, and so it's surrounded by protected forests. And so in that forest, you see the Italian wolf and actually black bears there as well. Next slide. So here's a picture of me with one of the local vendors there. They make honey, just like we do here in Florida, except they are 500 meters above sea level. So they have different types of flour and different taste. Unfortunately, I put it in my carry-on bag, and I was not able to bring the honey here because I made that mistake. However, I will show you what I was able to bring back in another slide. Go back. So that piazza right there. So Farindola is a very interesting city that they were founded in the 1300s, 1400s as a Renaissance city. They have a great history of being under the control of the Medici family and also the Farnese family. Both of them were able to have popes as part of their family tradition. And so it is a city rich in history. And I guess and so that plaza, during some of their festivals, they invite celebrity chefs to serve out there. Next slide. So here is a picture from one of Paul Critchley, the ambassador of Farindola, that got us involved off of his condo or building. And there's me and my wife looking over, and it's nice to see mountains because we don't get to see that here in Florida.
We have mountains.
And it was a fun time.
Landfills.
Yeah. Sorry. Next slide. So this is a picture looking down on the left side to one of their waterfalls. So they have their own water utility as well. They actually don't have to treat their water because the mountain treats it. So they get their fresh spring water directly from the glacial melt. And they originally tried to dig lower in on the mountain, and the pressure was so high because of their water source, so they had to dig up. And so to the picture on the right is members of the Farindola International Arts Festival that just finished up. They selected different artists from around the world to come to Farindola to paint, to share their experiences. And it's, after meeting the mayor and the new resident and the residents of there, it is a millennial city just like us. And so they are trying to grow their city with the fact that they have a good source of electricity, water, and internet. And I spoke with one of the newly transported residents there, and she says, yes, Amazon does deliver. Next slide. This is me in front of their city hall, or municipio, and it was fascinating because, we think 100 years is old here in Florida, where that's probably a 200, 300-year-old building. To the right is one of the frescoes that was in one of the buildings, one of the residential buildings, and it's a depiction of King Solomon. It was amazing to see because this is actually, as I mentioned, a Renaissance city. So up until the Renaissance, for those art history majors, it was mostly paintings of Jesus and other aspects of Christianity, where the Renaissance allowed artists to move on to that and talk about biblical and look into the history of the Roman and Hellenistic cultures. And so that was the fascinating part, is that they are now, the new leadership is trying to move on to the different community living in the 21st century. Next slide. And so this is what I was able to bring back. It was about 18 kilos. It is a handmade, painted tea set that we got from one of the neighboring cities of Farindola called Castillo. It is an amazing piece, and it makes me want to try to show off some more of our artwork from Boynton Beach and have our Arts Commission do a little bit more for our local artists to help share that.
And the city manager has the pleasure of displaying it in her office.
And so each of the teacups has its own little scene with its own little house. Then you have the saucer, and then on top of the plate. And it's fascinating. I invite the commission, and when we get the new city hall built, that will be there to show off, along with our pagoda from Shufu and our other artwork that we have received. And I think that's the last slide. Yes. And so I sent you some more, but it was, yeah.
I did the best I could.
Yes, all right. Yeah, well, one of the pictures shows that mayor has a sash.
Yes.
Oh, no.
But don't worry, I won't ask.
Good ideas.
And so
That out on purpose.
I spoke to the city manager. It does not add it has no additional costs for us to send a letter to Farindola requesting us them to be our sister city, or what they consider twinning of cities. That tea set, I don't necessarily know the value of it, but it's in the hundreds or if not thousands of dollars for the amount of time and effort it took to create that. And I would request a motion from the city commission to approve a sister city with Farindola, Italy.
So moved.
Yep.
Second.
Is there any discussion from the board?
Yes.
Yep.
I want to know, will you be going anywhere next year? Just kidding.
Well, the only...
I'm ready. Let's vote. Don't go there.
Okay. All those in favor state so by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Well, speaking of that, Commissioner McCrae, I know that you were in Shufu, so I wanted to know if you might be leading... Well,
Oh, never. To be home.
so we might need to find someone else to go there, because that is the only place I have not been yet.
Be my guest.
All right.
Great job, Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner McCrae asked us to speak about, our police department to speak about active shooters and what we are doing in the city. If our Chief Gregory could come and speak to us a little bit about that. I know that you have done some great work, or our police department has done great work handling active shooter situations this past year.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Michael Gregory, Police Chief. Excuse me. Yes, the department is, that's probably one of the biggest and most dangerous threats we have to worry about in the police department, is responding to active shooter, active killer incidents. They are real. We've been reminded of that just last weekend, as well as over the last few days. And in Texas and in Ohio. As far as how we're preparing for that, the department has a rigorous training program that we put our officers through first to make sure that they are prepared to deal with a call or a 911 call about an incident like that taking place, or if they drive up on one. That training includes defensive tactics, handgun training, firearms, tactical training, and as well as our tactical procedures, which I won't get into the details of, how we would address an active shooter threat. It also involves the familiarization of the equipment that we need to carry and the purchase and renewal and review of those equipment items. Things such as tourniquets, quick clock, ballistic vests, rifle plates. We keep all of them refreshed. We keep them in stock. And we monitor the life cycles, because they do have life cycles, so that they can constantly be replaced and renewed. That's on the police department side. So the first thing is we have to make sure our first responders are prepared to respond with equipment and training, as I just mentioned. The second thing is, as it applies to city staff, that we're refamiliarizing city staff with protocols and procedures of what to expect and how to respond in the event they find themselves, God forbid, in a situation with an active shooter. I don't recall the exact date, but I'm told that the training had occurred sometime in the last 3 years with staff. However, now we've moved out of the old city hall into a new location. So on the recommendation of the city manager a short time ago, we've been reviewing our training curriculum, since we're in a new physical locations in these corporate offices. And we'll be reconducting new active shooter training for staff in their facilities at the corporate executive office park, as well as the utilities plant and our other sites, to make sure they're familiar with the latest things. That training will include rehashing and revisiting what we believe in strongly is the national model, the FBI proposed model of run, hide, fight training. Some of you may have seen those videos on YouTube. They are still valid. They are still appropriate. And in my secondary role as an adjunct professor at FIU, I still use those videos today when I teach my classes at FIU. So the run, hide, fight protocols are incorporated into the training that we also provide to city staff. As I mentioned, we're updating that now based on our new locations, and it hopefully will be coming back out for city staff to participate in the next few months, but my training division will be coordinating that with the different department heads. So that's at a high level, the way that we approach it, from preparing the responders to respond, providing the equipment to respond, and then preparing the city staff should they encounter that kind of situation.
Thank you. I'm glad you went over that, but that's really not really what I was looking for. What I'm looking for, I need you to address, that is that citizens approaching employees, yelling at them, screaming at them, cursing at them and everything else. And I'm just saying, do we have anything that, help those citizens, help those employees to be protected when these citizens come up and start yelling and screaming? I'm just saying no employee should be put through that coming from a citizen. I don't care who they are, or an elected official. I'm just saying they're human. They should be addressed as humans, and I'm just saying if they have a difference or anything, they should treat them the same way, and this is my concern. Do we have anything, Lori, in place?
Well, from a customer service training standpoint, we train the employees to de-escalate a situation as best as possible if a citizen is becoming irate.
Okay.
With different tactics of trying to calm the individual, what have you. We are developing our city hall and our other customer service areas with protections of when we're handling money, especially in utilities, of bulletproof glass in between them and the customer. In the event of someone attempting to rob and so forth, for their personal safety as well. Employees are instructed also if they feel at all physically threatened at any time by anybody to immediately call 911. And we've done that. We've had to do that. PD has codes where we've had, I've heard from the old city hall, customers coming in and screaming and getting violent, where we've called PD and they've removed those individuals from the facility and some occasions have trespassed the individuals from the property. So I don't know, Chief, if you think I've missed anything else, but
No, that pretty much covers it. Obviously, as the manager mentioned, there's training for staff on how to de-escalate, handled internally, and then obviously if that can't be managed, we'll respond and we'll take action as appropriate based on any laws that have been violated.
Thank you. That's what I was concerned with, de-escalation. Thank you. To answer my question.
Chief Gregory, before you go, I saw cruisers in front of the movie theater this past weekend and Home Depot. And so has your office reached out to the other plaza owners as well to make sure that if they're requesting police cruisers or security during high shopping areas, specifically during holiday season?
I missed a little piece of that. Did we reach out to who?
To the different plaza owners, or is it just the plaza owners reaching out to you for the extra security?
Probably what you're seeing is part of our strategic patrol initiatives.
Okay.
We review routine crime patterns around the city, particularly at our retail locations, and we stage and/or have officers visit those locations throughout the day. So you've probably you'll see them at Lowe's, you'll see them at Home Depot, the movie theater, the mall. Based on the patterns that we're seeing, we're proactively placing officers in hotspot areas to help de-escalate and deter crime from happening.
All right. Thank you for that.
No, our pleasure.
Yes.
And, I'm sorry, Tom.
Go ahead. All right. I just have one question for you, Chief. Thank you for all the great work that you and your men and women have been doing in the community. God forbid there is an active shooter. Are we prepared in every way possible to handle this situation? Do we have enough staff? Do we have enough equipment? Where can we handle it properly?
It's always a tricky question, but
It is.
I believe for the size city that we have and the threat that we're facing, we're appropriately staffed to address the threat that may occur. Is there always something else to look at and review? Absolutely. That's what we do on a regular basis, especially before budget time, to make sure that we have the equipment that we believe is necessary to respond or what we need to replace to keep it fresh and in stock. So we do that on an active basis, and I believe we're appropriately prepared to respond at this time.
All right. That's good. Thank you.
Vice Mayor.
You didn't expect him to say no, did you?
I need to hear some things.
I just wanted to thank Commissioner McCray for bringing this up. I think I had a similar thought in response to some stories I've heard recently. And working in schools, we tell kids and employees as well, adults, see something, say something. So when employees are out in the field and they're not law enforcement officers, they're at an even greater disadvantage should something occur. I want to make sure that our employees know that, if you have an interaction with anybody during the course of your work and they impede your work or they threaten or harass you, that it needs to be documented, because a lack of documentation leads to a lack of preparedness if it occurs in the future. It's just that, our employees are out there exposed, and many of them are not trained law enforcement officers. So like I said, they're defenseless, and I think that they have rights, and they need to make sure they understand they have rights and report anything. It's not like they're filing a police report on people, but just documenting that I was at this place doing my job, somebody came up, I felt threatened by them. Now people know that the worst thing you can do is say nothing, because then you're still alone should something happen in the future, and that's the worst place you can be. So I applaud Commissioner McCray for bringing this up. I know that through discussions with the city manager that these types of incidents are not to be tolerated. Employees are human beings. They're not just government workers to be abused. So I hope that they're respected by everyone, and if they're not respected and they're impeded in their work, that city manager and the PD know so that they can do what's appropriate to ensure protection of our employees.
If I just may share an example, we've unfortunately, I can say on several occasions since I've worked here, but we've had, a resident call that's very irate and says some very, very threatening and scary things sometimes. We immediately pick up the phone and call the police department. We have caller ID, and usually the police department goes out and pays a visit to the individual that made those threats to us. So we do actively not ignore that, because we take that very seriously as far as safety. People can't walk around saying the things that like that. So we have, and PD is always right there to cover us and take care of us.
All right. Thank you very much.
Mayor.
Commissioner Ramos.
My question was, I guess, kind of answered by Lori. So the quickest way for staff to get in touch with PD, it's not just through 911, is it?
Right now, yes. 911 is the best and fastest way to get a hold of us. In the new facilities, we'll be installing panic buttons around the critical locations.
Asking if there's
so there'll be a secondary way to get through, yes.
Yeah.
rather than having to call 911, have the call rerouted and all that.
Several of our employees are also on radios that they would be able to communicate as well, field employees.
And I would also like to say, just while we're on the topic, I think just out of respect, we should probably have a moment of silence for the individuals who were involved in the shootings in Ohio and in Texas. Thank you.
Is there anything else from the commission?
Nope.
Seeing none, thank you so much, Chief.
Thank you.
Moving on to legal. Our first item, A, City Commission is requested to review the lien modification order issued by the Special Magistrate at the July 17, 2019 hearing for case 13-1724.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, hi, my name is Simone D'Souza, and yes, I was at a hearing in front of the magistrate about a couple of weeks ago. And basically, it's to, I requested to eliminate a lien that was imposed on a property that I purchased about a year and a half ago. They did reduce the lien, but it's still, you know, a lot that is left. So I asked to present my case in front of you guys, which I appreciate the opportunity to ultimately have it eliminated. When I purchased the property, it was a burnt out property, had fire damage, so it was dilapidated, burnt out. You know, they had trespassers, drug fiends in there. They even had fecal matter. Human fecal matter, drug paraphernalia, condoms. You know, they went in and they stole all the pipings and the electrical wirings and everything. The yard was full of debris with overgrown trees and all of that. So after a lengthy process of over a year, I totally renovated the property from the floor up, gutted everything down to the studs, and did everything. So you have new roofing, it's now pristine, everything is brand new. Like I said, I redid the roofing, the trusses, I replaced all the electrical wiring, plumbing, new walls, new flooring, you name it, kitchen, bathroom. I even added new amenities, like added a central AC that wasn't there before, added a washer and dryer hookups that wasn't there before, cleaned up the yard, added new landscape, a new sod, new everything, added hurricane features, and also included fire safety measures like firewalls, security, and having fire extinguishers in each unit, having smoke detectors in each room in each unit, and of course everything was done up to code through the city, through permits, so everything is, you know, on the up and up.
Do you mind if I ask how much do you think you spent approximately?
Over $160,000.
And this is on Northeast 11th Avenue?
Yes.
Okay, well, I'd like to say that, you know, I was looking at the violation. It wasn't because of the property being dilapidated where the city spent a lot of money bulldozing the house or trying to fill in a pool. It was because someone didn't have a business tax receipt, and you currently have a business tax receipt?
Yes, I have it.
You're renting it out. And there is no additional funds that the city has expended that have not been paid. I guess I'll have to ask the code, our community standards person. So my question is that you've paid all of the city's fees associated with the property except for the $200 a day lien.
Right, that was 2 owners ago, mind you.
Yep.
So I inherited it after 2 previous sales, so.
All right. Thank you. Do you mind if I ask our community standards a question right by?
Oh, sure.
Hi, Westig MPA Community Standard Supervisor.
So my question is that has the applicant paid all of the costs that the city had to pay in order to make this property in compliance through the past 6 years?
Yes, in order for them to go before the magistrate, they have to pay all the costs, yes.
Okay. I don't necessarily know from what the board thinks, but I feel that we should not hinder business owners from rehabbing properties any further than the actual costs. So, Commissioner McCray?
Thank you. That is in my district. The first thing I want to ask, did you do a title search on this property before you bought it? Because if so, they should have brought it up that they had liens on it. I'm talking to the young lady.
No, I don't do title searches. So
I'm saying, when you bought it, did you get a company, an insurance company, to do a title search? Anytime you buy property, you always do a title search to see if there's any liens or anything on these properties. Did you do that?
No, well, I'm sure the title company that we closed with should have done that.
They should have, right? They should have.
Right.
Okay, whether they did or not, okay, I'm like with the mayor, I'm just saying we had things that came before us before. I'm just saying, with properties, and it's the practice here in this city, from the time I sat before prior, is that, anytime anybody bring anything up to standards, we always like to do the forgiveness part because we like to make sure that we have people that's now in the city who has taken something that was zero and made something out of it, and I'm going to be the first to offer a motion that we forget this lien reduction and go ahead and do what you said so that you won't have anything except go ahead and move forward on your property.
I'll second with discussion.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
We're discussing.
Oh.
Not there yet.
We're almost there.
Almost.
I just want to commend you. What was your name again?
Simone D'Souza.
Simone D'Souza. Thank you, Ms. D'Souza, for your work. I'm just looking at these pictures, the befores and the afters, and it is truly night and day. So again, the fact that you're coming into a part of our community and improving it, making it better, improving the standard of living, and allowing for people to have affordable rents, and all of this, again, in terms of you being a business owner here within our city, is all the things that I would like to continue to see our city do. So with that, I have seconded the motion, and I'm ready to vote.
So as you mentioned, you bought the property with a warranty deed, which states that the seller is actually liable for out of that $80,000 that you spent to pay you, because it's not a free of encumbrances. Jim, if you want to back me up on that.
That's essentially correct. There would be recourse against a seller who sells property and has knowledge of a lien and doesn't disclose it.
Could we request the applicant to assign us that right to seek from any insurance or from the seller?
It would be of no effect to do that because if the commission takes action to reduce or eliminate the lien, that action will merge into any claim of action against prior owner, so it would be washed out.
So yeah, that is the issue that we have if we reduce it. So I guess the question is that would you mind if we try to collect that money that is owed? Yeah, Pierre.
We do have a case history. Do you have the case history before you today?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, but
Okay. If you have the case history regarding the property before you today, the owner know when they bought the property with the liens on it.
Oh. Yes, Commissioner McCray.
Thank you. I'm quite sure that they probably got aware of it after it happened, and just like what the mayor has said, between the mayor and our attorney, they're practicing law. I don't know anything about law, but it has been a practice of this city that we have said that since it's up to standards and that you are a valuable and a liable owner here in this city, that we do forgiveness. And that's what my motion is, that forgive whatever is there and tell you good luck with your property and go ahead and be a nice landlord here in this city. That's my motion. I'm not trying to practice law tonight.
And then my other question, did you own the property in 2016?
No, I purchased it in 2018.
Okay. So the current owner says it's ZAD Investments. Okay. And that you sold it, it was sold to you by BFI Holdings LLC. Okay. All right, is there any further discussion from the board? We have a motion and second on the table to reduce the lien. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Congratulations.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Mayor, should we interpret that action as reducing it to zero?
Yes,
Yeah, to
I
zero,
would-
to zero.
Yeah, clarify that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank
No,
you.
thank you. After the night, you're on your own.
That's okay.
She already was.
Okay.
She's been doing a great job.
Our next item is 12B, provide information concerning elected officials' terms of office to commission.
Mayor, I just want to step up and spearhead this conversation. I just want to make sure we clarify, and I don't think anybody can disagree with me up here, that no one is trying to remove term limits. That was not the intent of the residents who came before us here to request this item be discussed. The content of what I believe was being requested by several residents who came up and spoke was simply to allow for transitions to occur where a commissioner does not have to necessarily step down for a period of time before running for a different post or for a different office. I requested that. That was the motion that I made to staff, or specifically to the city attorney, to bring that back. And so that information wasn't necessarily clear. The information seemed to be focusing more on what the term limits are surrounding municipalities. So that's why I asked for the conversation to be held back until the properly mentioned information was brought before us. But since the conversation is wanting to be had, then we can have it. But I just wanted to make sure to clarify, and again, I want to make sure that everybody's on the same page, that the intent here, which is what several members of the community came up and requested, was to not remove term limits. And that is, I think we can all agree that that is not a good idea, nor is it the proper direction that we would want to move this city in.
All right. If the commission doesn't mind, I'd like to open it up to the audience that have waited and give them 3 minutes to speak about this item. Is there anyone from the audience that would like to speak?
Peppermints in that thing over there.
Whoever's to the podium first gets to speak first.
Good evening. My name is David Combs, and I live at 334 Southwest 11th Avenue, and here in beautiful Boynton Beach. It's my first time here. It's kind of fun. Seat's a little uncomfortable. Apparently, this is not the issue that I thought it was, so I will accept your explanation as being fact that it is not the intent of our city to do away with term limits. I would be opposed to that on two areas. First of all, is it stifles the ability for new minds to get a look at the city and keep it going and moving it forward, which I think is always good, gives opportunity. And the second, when you do not have term limits, then politicians or office holders have an opportunity to make contacts in the community and are literally able to outraise their opponents for funding. And so it becomes almost impossible to defeat them because it's very expensive to run for office, yard signs, that sort of thing. However, if that is not the intention of the council, or commission, then I'm very happy with that, and I will accept your explanation, and thank you very much. You are exactly right.
So the question, though, is that what if a commissioner wants to run for a mayor, or if a mayor wants to run for
I have no issue with that. That's a different office.
Okay.
I have no issue with that because then they would then undertake the mayor's term limit. No issue with that whatsoever. That seems like a perfectly reasonable compromise.
Okay.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Harry Woodworth, 685 Northeast 15th Place, Boynton Beach. I guess I'm a little confused by this, so I guess what I would ask is whenever this comes back, somebody would tell us specifically what it is that's being proposed and how it relates to the current regulations. And two, what exactly is the impact of whatever is being proposed on the existing sitting commissioners and mayor? I guess those two things would probably go a long way to clarifying this. In regards to my position on term limits, I'll just echo the previous gentleman. We need term limits. You can't begin to count the number of surveys that have been run in this country for the last 20 years on surveys. The population of the entire country at all levels of government is overwhelmingly, and I'm talking 75% plus or minus 10 in favor of term limits, and the only people that are strongly opposed to term limits are lobbyists. What a surprise. So I guess I would just say it brings in fresh blood. We need fresh blood. A guy named Einstein says you can't solve the problems you created with the same level of thinking you created them with, so fresh blood solves that problem. So we do need term limits, we do need fresh blood, we do need fresh ideas, and just tell us what it is you're trying to propose and how it impacts those of you sitting up there, so we don't end up with power blocks like we used to have in this city. We don't need that anymore. Thank you.
Susan Oyer, 140 Southeast 27th Way. Yes, I am against getting rid of term limits. I do recognize that some of the people on the commission may want to run for other positions. In the past, it's always been you have to take a break. So there is a term limit before you run for the next or different thing. So that actually is a term limit issue, because if you were to run for a different position, that would be another 6 years potentially. And that would put you 12 years on here instead of only 6. So this is a term limit issue. I just want to highlight a couple things on here. I don't want to be too repetitive. If you look at the first one from wichitalibrary.org, because my best friend Google and I spent a couple hours researching this a month ago, it turns out that, quote, since the time of the Founding Fathers, a general consensus states that people, when given power, will eventually be corrupted by it. The source Quizlet, which I know the vice mayor knows what this is, but it's a website where you do games for kids on the Constitution and whatever topic you choose. They talked about term limits, and it promotes new ideas, reduces opportunities for corruption, and getting rid of term limits is not democratic. That's how dictatorships start, which is what I believe I brought up the last time. Moving on to the Council of State Governments, if you look at number 8, it says it affords more members the opportunity to serve in leadership positions, which is a great thing. You want to get as many people prepared to be leaders in your city as possible. If we move on to the back, Cities 101, number 2, Limits encourage political participation by newcomers, which is an advantage to term limits. It curbs the influence of lobbyists. It will produce a citizen legislature of more ordinary people rather than full-time politicians. Term-limited representatives would be more in harmony with public opinion and their district's constituents, and it promotes fresh ideas. To tack on to what Harry said, note that McLaughlin Online did a recent survey back in 2018, 82% of voters approve a constitutional amendment that will place term limits on members of Congress, and they find later on that 53% of Americans want term limits on the Supreme Court. So they're saying at all levels is what these studies are saying, that everyone wants term limits. And of course, I bring you to the 22nd Amendment to the Constitution, which limits the president to 2 terms, and that was passed on March 21st, 1947. And if it's good enough for the president of our country and our governor, then it should be good enough for our city. So keep our term limits, please. Thank you very much.
Hi, how are you doing? My name is Dr. Stephanie Hayden Adiamo. Ms. Oyer and I share a love of teaching. We both teach science, but I remember her saying that her background is in political science. And I love how she ended with the statement about the highest office in the land. And I think I'm going to date myself, I'm born in 1978. And I remember there was a very famous president that we instituted term limits, because I believe he served 16 years. 16? Was it 16? He had polio? I'm not too sure on that, because I didn't study history. I studied science, biology and chemistry. And what I'm saying to the layman is that the 2 gentlemen that came up that evening that Ms. Oyer and I spoke at came to say that they like the fluidity of the leadership that they have, and they don't want someone to come in and change the fluidity of what was going on in the city. It's the city, some buzzwords, revitalization, progressiveness, new movement, fluidity. Those are just buzzwords for if you like something, you want it to keep going. That does not necessarily mean that you must sit out. You must sit out. This is a democratic nation. Even though our current president is trying to lean it toward a dictatorship, we are citizen, and our country is led by elected officials that are citizens of the country. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Barbara Reedy, 34001 Baez Bay, Boynton Beach. Let's face it, we're all human. Each of us deals with change in our own way. Sometimes change is thrust upon us and is hard. But most times change happens for a reason and is good for us. Many years ago, the voters in Boynton decided to support periodic change in our city leaders, which is remarkable considering that Boynton seldom votes for anything. Winston Churchill is quoted as saying, after a time, civil servants tend to become no longer servants and no longer civil. I understand some of you may be harboring plans for a political path in the future. I urge you to look upon term limits as an opportunity to pursue such a path sooner. If you choose to move forward with eliminating or altering term limits, please know that we will fight against this effort. Thank you.
David Katz, 67 Midwood Lane, Our Fair City. If I'm not mistaken, I believe term limits has been brought up and voted down 5 times over the past, I don't know how many years. Maybe there are members of this commission who feel like if you take enough times and throw the spitballs against the blackboard, something's going to stick, or if you police car follows you for 500 miles, you're definitely going to get a ticket, so it's going to happen eventually. Historically, any time this term limits issue has been proffered by a commission, and let me add, never by petition, only by the elected officials, it's been defeated soundly. At least these commissioners or commissions let it be known that it was not to be self-serving. Because if any of these defeated referendums had passed in the past, any current elected officials could not avail themselves of the changes on a consecutive basis. Meaning that if the majority of this commission decides to move this item in whatever form to ordinance, you should show us that's not self-serving and say none of us can avail ourselves of this. Otherwise, we'll know where you're coming from, which is to foster your term in office. Because contrary to what this gentleman thinks, this is a workaround to term limits by letting somebody run for a different office on a consecutive basis. And if this commission, that is those members who vote to move this ordinance, to move to ordinance on this matter in whatever form, I promise you that those of us, and we are committed and many, will make it our day and night purpose and mission to knock the you-know-what out of the political machine you're attempting to create by eliminating term limits in whatever form, and in turn give rise to your own self-serving political power structure. And once this term limit question is defeated, maybe we'll move on to recall. Thank you.
And the question I had for Commissioner McCray, because you're the one that is facing the term limit.
Hold on, somebody else is.
Oh, yes.
Good evening, Golene Gordon, 230 Lake Monterey Circle. And when I look at the information, it's just a provided information. And I heard everybody. And also I look at the agenda. I am not sure where was it going, but I stand with everybody else who's here that this is the United States of America, and we should remain who we are. Even third countries have term limits, and we should not go into certain ways that to make the community who voted for you now to rule against you. Let's just move forward and let the country be free as it is right now. Thank you.
So, Commissioner Cray, you had 2 terms, you sat out and then were appointed?
I don't know how it went, but anyway, let me go ahead and speak.
Yes.
First of all, I want the record to speak that I am in favor of term limits. Okay, when Commissioner Penserga got replaced Commissioner Casello, I was the first one that went to him and told him, I said, since you've been up here, it has been a breath of fresh air. We need fresh air. I'm about burnout. I appreciate term limits, and I will support term limits. Thank you.
All right. But Commissioner McCray, you did wait a term?
Yeah, I waited. Sure, I waited.
Okay.
Follow the law.
All right. That's what I want to know. And so
I broke it on the chief here? No.
All right. I agree that whatever the laws that we have should be good, because I believe that we had a charter review committee in 2013 that changed a couple of laws, and this was not one of the things that needed to be changed. As we approach our centennial, it's always been a term limit, and as we can see with all the pictures of the mayors. And I'd like to continue that as well, having the term limits. So, the Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I was excited to talk about this because people that know me know I taught government for 10 years in high school. So, I've had this type of discussion with my students throughout those 10 years, and I kind of thoroughly enjoy the topic because I'm ambivalent about it, where in some cases I definitively don't like the idea that if somebody's good in office and people in that geographic area like that person, I don't know if a rule should preclude you from picking who you like. But at the same time, I recognize the realities and the evils that exist as a result of career politicians. So even though I don't like not being allowed to choose who I want because of a term limit, I understand it's a necessary rule to prevent the bad apples. And in politics, at every level, there are lots of bad apples. So you can't let bad apples hang out, or you can't let good apples hang out, because that allows the bad apples to continue to hang out. My point is, aside from apples, is that there would be consequences to a change. We run staggered elections. So even though if we did this, you could run consecutive terms, 2 as commissioner, 2 as mayor, for instance, I think is kind of the prevailing direction this may be going, because people have talked about it in the past. What that really means is that the 2 commission seats, one of which I hold, run consecutive with the mayor's term. So when my seat or the District 3 seat are up, the mayor's seat's up. So it's an immediate transition to run for the next office. But whereas Commissioner McCray's district and Commissioner Penserga's district end in a different year, if you don't make all the elections on the same cycle, that means that those 2 commission seats will never be able to consecutively run. They will always have to sit out because they finished their term, and then the mayor's race isn't for 2 years. So I don't know what machination you could do other than making all 5 elections on the same cycle, which would require you in the next set of elections to extend the term of 2 of the commissioners an additional year or 2. I haven't done the math, but at some point you have to equalize the terms. There's a lot of logistics that complicate the idea. So I'm not fundamentally opposed to a discussion about term limits because, again, I expressed I have feelings on both sides, but I think in the city of Boynton Beach, 6 years is enough, and if you don't think 6 years is enough, you sit out 3 years, and then you run for 6 more, and you say, you can run for, there's a bunch of 20 and 30-year-olds up here, we could run for the next 40 years if we really wanted to. So I appreciate the discussion, and I'm not fundamentally opposed to entertaining ideas, but the mayor had brought up an issue where he wanted to potentially ask residents about compensation for elected officials, and we didn't say let that go to the voters and let them decide. We didn't accept it, and it kind of died there. So I'd be remiss to say, well, let this go to the voters, let them decide, because we didn't do that in a previous request for a change to the charter. So I like the system we have. I think nobody could deny that, in particular, this commission, those of us who are going to be up here for the next 3 years and just serve the term, in our 6-year period up here, we have done more to affect the city for the next 50 years than anyone could expect you to do in 6 years. And obviously other commissioners are up here, not with that younger generation, but my point is 6 years is a lot of time to get a lot done. And while in the last election, 2 elections ago, 2 incumbents were defeated, this past election, 3 incumbents out of 3 won. So it's a mixed bag, and I think if it's not broke, don't fix it. A couple of people who spoke in favor of it over the course of the weeks were supporters of ours. So, you know, obviously all your supporters want you to run for 3 more years or 4 more years, but I think, and this will be my closing statement, you know, every day to get at people who don't support him, the president tweets something about, you know, I should be allowed to run for a 3rd term. And it's ridiculous because the Constitution can't be amended. It's almost impossible. But the point is, your supporters always want you to run for a 3rd or a 4th term. But if it's not a candidate you support, you know, over your dead body, will they get to change the rules and run again? So, you know, I appreciate the discussion. I think it's working. I think the city's in a good direction, and to shock the system right now, you know, wouldn't be beneficial. I rambled long enough.
All right.
Thank you.
I'd like to end this conversation. Commissioner Pinsurga, you have a final comment?
Yes, I just want to be absolutely clear with where I stand on this issue. There's been stuff on the internet floating around mischaracterizing where I stand. To be clear, I am unequivocally opposed to increasing the number of consecutive terms that a commissioner or mayor may serve. I'm opposed to increasing the duration of their terms for the present members of DICE or for the future. I'm also opposed to putting this on the ballot, spending $70,000, or even if the cost was $0. Because when people elected me, people of my district, District 4, they did not do so with the intention that I may someday help somebody else to become a career politician or myself to become a career politician. That's not what I stand for. That's not what the people of District 4 stand for, and that's certainly not what they're going to vote for. However, there's one additional item that I want to be absolutely clear on as well, and that's this idea of the 1-year sit-out rule. So what is this rule about? After having served 2 consecutive terms as mayor or as commissioner, you have to sit out for at least a year before you can run for office again, for either of those positions. What is the value of the 1-year sit-out rule? That is the question that I've been asking everybody that I've had this conversation with. Is the idea that by sitting out by a year, you're magically going to become a better person? Are you going to go to India or Bali and you're going to have some sort of find a guru and have a eat, pray, love moment? Is that the idea? Now, these are the questions I ask everybody when I have these conversations because I'm playing devil's advocate. I'm looking for what is the virtue, the purpose of sitting out. And here's this. Here's what I've come to. And that is, very simply, I don't want anyone playing musical chairs. You know, I've seen that before in the past, and frankly, that's the conversation that we should be having. What can we be doing right now to strengthen this democracy? If we remove the sit-out rule, it allows someone to move from one position consecutively, having served 2 consecutive terms, 6 years continuous, and then potentially another 6 continuous years. And here's how they can fool the people. Because on paper, the term limits for each of the positions are still the same. They're just playing musical chairs going from one position to another. So although on paper the number of terms may be the same and the duration of each of their terms are the same, effectively they will hold a seat and hold power for potentially 12 continuous years. That is not what I'm in favor of. So I will be opposed to any changes in the current system at this time.
Anyone who has the last comment? Jim, could I get a motion to not change term limits, or?
I don't think we need to do anything. We didn't do anything.
We don't need anything.
You don't need anything. If you wanted to do something, there would need to be a motion to do it, but
we don't need to.
To conclude the discussion, this item is concluded.
All right. Is there any further items or any further discussion that the commission has? Seeing none, moving on to the next item.
Unless you want to know about apples.
Yeah.
Proposed ordinance number 19-025.
An ordinance of the City of Boynton Beach, Florida, amending the Land Development Regulations, Chapter 2, Land Development Process, Article 1, Overview, Section 4, Expedited Development Review Program, inserting additional eligible projects and benefits, and eliminating redundant verbiage and requirements, providing for conflict severability codification and an effective date.
All right. Mike, do we have a brief presentation?
If it pleases the commission, yes, I have a brief presentation for you.
All right. Do you want to do it now or second reading? Yeah. Okay, we're doing it now.
Thank you. Mike Rumpf, your development director, presenting this item before you tonight. This ordinance has been in our city's regulations for several years. It started out to accommodate what we call industry clusters. Those are listed in your backup and in the existing ordinance. Specific industrial classifications of uses. It was amended then a few years later to include as an eligible development workforce housing, and amended a second time to include projects classified as green or sustainable by certain industries. That's right. I have to turn it around. Here is just a summary of some of the proposed changes to the regulations. I'll just briefly go through these. Most importantly, separating out a couple industry clusters so they don't confuse them as you combine them together. Communications and information technology was combined. I'm not sure why, but they are best fit on their own and treated individually as qualifying industrial sectors or businesses. We've added another category called manufacturing, fabrication, and processing. That actually coincides with a zoning category in our zoning matrix. We've added mixed-use development as a qualified project. You'll see in the regulations that it is specified by or specifically qualified as a specific mixed-use zoning district to be eligible, includes a commercial component to be eligible, and of course there's two different group or categories. One, those within the CRA and those outside the CRA. Those outside the CRA would be limited to a minimum of 5 acres as well. And of course, there's basic editing and cleaning up. I found some redundancy in both the wording as well as some of the requirements. If I skip over something, you have a question, please stop me. This is a very simple timeline using site plan review process as an example. The next slide itemizes basically the tools that we have used and we would use to expedite or shorten a review process. We've estimated based upon these, based upon calendar days, dates that hearings are held during a month, and the possibility of holding a special P&D board meeting to help expedite things and save time. We could chop off approximately 4 to 5 weeks in a total review period. And really what's important, and I should disclaim by saying, when we apply tools and techniques that are under our control, obviously we aren't under total control of a development review process. The applicant responds to comments, needs to supply complete applications, fill in deficiencies. And sometimes if the team isn't assembled, if they're not ready to do that, that can take unexpected time. What are some of the techniques that we have used? We have a good experience in using. We know they can shorten time periods, beginning with good information. What are our requirements? What standards? Are all applications being considered by an applicant? A lot of that is discussed through the required pre-application meeting. That we do with projects now, but that's important that we do that. We condense staff periods. This is something we have done when we've needed to, and we can usually go from a 3-week review period initially down to less than 2 weeks. Something I envision when we have a simple project, very complete project, or if we accept comments to go forward through the site plan process, more comments ending up in the permit process, we can go from a double review to a single review. Staff reviews a site plan twice. Initial review, and then at the DART meeting, the second review. And the calendar is planned out so that you conclude at that point, and the review is completed, staff reports assembled, and it goes off to the plan development board. If we condense it down to one review, we save a few weeks, and that is possible. It needs to be treated as a priority by all disciplines. all those involved, inside the development department as well as outside the development department. And that's something that we need to really get buy-in, and considerable time can be saved. I skipped over unintentionally pay for overtime plan reviews. Contingent upon having the reviewers or having the private sector to support us, that's important, but that is possible as well. Affidavit for compliance with standards and requirements, that's new. That's something we have been considering as we evaluate our development review process now. That allows for an applicant to basically, yes.
So for that affidavit, would they have their insurance back that up? If, let's say, they signed off on an affidavit and they made a mistake and it shouldn't have been, do we require insurance of that professional?
Well, basically, just the affidavit which commits that they will comply, and if they don't, they end up having to reverse what they did wrong and correct. That's worst case.
So I've been involved in a couple of projects that use that, and the contractor or the developer would be smart to purchase the insurance to cover errors and omissions by their, within the process. But we would not require it. When we get the affidavit, it says you're meeting the code.
And so if we find that they did not meet the code,
they fix it
at
their cost.
And we have the enforcement mechanism of a red tag or something in that sense that is, prohibitive. Is that something that we can, I guess I can't really include in the ordinance, but it was something that we encourage people to get in the insurance?
Yeah, Jim would have to say if we could require it. I don't think we can require it, but Jim could look into that and see. Our preference is to give them it as an option. If they're good developers, and good developers will, if they want to go quick, they may choose this option. And if they're good, they will also have the backup insurance policies and bonding that they need to do it this way. So it's really up to Jim whether or not it's legal to require it. I couldn't tell you that.
You finally admit you don't know something. Thank you.
Don't know that. You don't know?
Well, that's something you can talk about for a second reading. How about that?
Okay.
What can we do to make sure that, they get this project, they lend it out to a business, and then the business says, well, I can't do business anymore. So just want to make sure that we're protecting the future.
Yeah, we'll absolutely look into that and bring some more information back on how to ensure that the private party that's providing the services stay in business and do it correctly. And if they make a mistake, how is that covered?
Okay.
I think that's what you're asking.
Yes.
Okay.
We have talked about that in our discussions of process and how we can improve it. And we've even contemplated at certain stages of a project that runs into a problem. In the time so far when we've considered it, it hasn't been major components of a building. It's been really accessory components. It's been things that code requires, but if something were to go wrong, if they were to misdesign it or something, it isn't as if it's this building is 4 stories high, it's completed, and they've got to tear it down and start over. It's not really those scenarios. Anyway, and the last item is delayed. We also refer to as deferred submittal or early start. The one means, and this is things that we've put into practice now. Deferred submittal just means there's certain components of the application are missing, whether it's product approvals or something. The project can really progress. Construction can commence or progress past certain points, and we require them when they're most important to a project. Early start is commencing a project to a certain point when an inspection is required. It allows the project to get out of the ground rather than wait until a complete review process is through. This is, depending upon staffing, it's not as if there isn't without cost, because other projects who are currently not being processed as an expedited project that meets the criteria may be delayed. And of course, like I said, that depends on staffing levels at the time, but always needs to be considered. Oops. I skipped over. And then this is a list of bullets. I'm sorry, I went through this pretty quickly. I think I may have bumped it. The prior slide, the bullet items as features to expedite a site plan process as compared to getting into the permit issuance stage of the project. Of course, first bullet needed to expedite such stage in the development process is our electronic plan submittal. And we are nearing stages of acquiring that software or cloud storage and program to have electronic plan submittal and review. Again, a thorough pre-application and good communication between the staff and the applicant is necessary. Again, pay for overtime plans. I'm sorry, I went through this before, and maybe I skipped over.
You skipped over the first one.
Yes, that's what I thought. Sorry, I was reading those steps related to the permit stage when I should have been reading the site plan approval stage. Holding of a special P&D board meeting. Okay, I'm sorry. Talking too much and not paying attention to my slides.
Going back.
If you want
That
me,
really concludes
I'll
it.
keep talking about apples if that will buy you more time.
Yep, sorry. That concludes my presentation if there's questions.
All right. My other question is for eligible uses, it says business and financial services non-retail. What exactly is the non-retail business and financial services?
Banks.
Banks?
For example, financial institutions.
Okay. But would, so like would a doctor's office or accountant, that would not?
Not a doctor's office, no.
Okay.
Not your general offices. If you look at that list, it's really geared toward industry sectors. It would be R&D. It would be, let me say this too, and I think I wanted to preface by saying the ordinance is specific with respect to some of those sectors and industrial uses and the qualifying businesses, but it's very vague when it comes down to the mechanics of how to expedite a project. But there still may be some interpretation on some of the businesses. I don't think the ordinance was intended to be very specific, but allow us some flexibility as a project comes on. I could imagine there would be discussion among senior staff, Mr. Scott, our Economic Development Coordinator, and other pertinent staff members for insight as we decide whether something would qualify or not.
I mean, for one of my concerns is that, and I know that we have the Toys R Us and the Orchard Park and certain other big retailers that went out of business. And let's say, they would like to try to do the expedite because you're talking over 20,000 square feet. Is it possible to give it a square footage for commercial or industrial use because it is such a big project?
And are you speaking specifically to the Toys R Us building?
Yeah, or any sort of big building where it's for it's not necessarily for residential use.
It's under redevelopment.
But it's for commercial or industrial use that it has the ability to be an expedited permitting process.
Well,
if you'd like to get us more information for second reading, and that's my question.
Well, I'm going to try to answer that. So that would be a redevelopment project. So that would fit under the master plan redevelopment if it was 5 acres. So if the land was less than 5 acres right now, it would not cover under there because we're trying to encourage. And where you're talking about there's several vacant properties, we want them to join together and do a master plan, which actually is starting to happen. Correct. So I think this process will be used to encourage those properties to join together, master plan a redevelopment that fits the current economy where the big boxes are kind of being phased out. I think I'm answering your question.
You did answer my question. My concern is that it's 5 acres is a good amount. And so I know the Toys R Us, even though it's like a single.
We're open to suggestions on the acreage. That was an acreage we picked because it fits the larger projects like, I'm going to use the example that's probably going to be one of the first projects, which is the Boynton Beach Mall.
Yep.
It would fit that. If you get it too small, we're trying to encourage better master planning on these smaller sites where they join together and they do master planning and redevelop the whole area. So you don't just get one small site redeveloped, you get the whole area redeveloped. And I do see that it is starting to happen by giving these incentives to get them in the door. So
I don't want to devalue the ordinance at all.
No. So the Toys R Us property was 4 acres, is what it says. So if we could go from 5 to 4 acres, I'd be happy.
If that's the board's wish, yeah. I mean, the acreage is a number.
Yep.
So.
I don't want to devalue the ordinance, but I do want to boast of staff's ability. Based on my experience, we have expedited projects. We've used most of these components in the past. We are capable of doing it when we need to. We meet special demands when they come along. Staff has worked overtime. Staff has worked weekends. We have, when someone comes to us and says, I've got this deadline, I've got this business plan, we're able to do that. So a lot of these things are not new to us, and we have made exceptions. And it hasn't, and such deviation from our standard process is not always just for such qualifying industries, but it can happen for unique special needs.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. You answered my question. You said you all have done this in the past. That's all I need to know. Thank you.
All right. Commissioner Romulus.
How does this help the problem that the gentleman from earlier spoke about regarding just multiple changes and just different contractors chiming in on the same project, but just having changes done, from the same plan? So how does this help with that?
Was that Mr. Beasley who you're referring to, who had?
I remember his name.
Well, this is really unrelated to it, and those really don't address some of the issues, but we've started looking at our process and trying to debug it some time ago. We've got a formal team in place now that's reviewing our process for improvements. I just met with staff on a regular ongoing basis and the leaders in the department to talk about some of the issues, and I today just got two very good ideas on how to address some of the criticisms that we've been receiving and how to expedite things internally. Very good. So I'm excited to do that. I think we've also talked about even a more formalized process to go about evaluating our systems.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? May I have a motion to approve?
So move.
Do I have
Second.
May I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Prince-Zerga,
Yes.
Mayor Grant,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Katz, Commissioner McCray,
Yes.
Commissioner Romulus.
Aye.
The vote is 5-0.
Mayor?
Yes.
I just want to bring it to the attention of the city clerk or whomever is in charge of the agenda that the paper agenda is in a different order than the online agenda, so...
C and D are swapped.
Yes.
I noticed that too. I thought I was going nuts. No, you're absolutely right. I was going to point that
Yeah,
out to Queen
'cause
Esther.
I thought we skipped an item, and then I
Nope.
looked at the paper agenda, and it's in the right order.
Paper
So.
has it right, but it's swapped in the system, which is strange. Yeah, I'll show you later.
That's called a glitch.
All right. So the next item is item D is proposed resolution number 19-083, authorize mayor to execute a land swap agreement between the city of Boynton Beach and Sarah Williams, authorize the mayor to execute a deed transfer from the city of Boynton Beach to Boynton Beach CRA.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion.
Yes.
Ms. Williams is in agreement with this? Is Ms. Williams here?
Yes. Yeah. The staff met with Ms. Williams, and it was actually a mutual agreement. I think both parties are coming out with a better piece of property to complete some development. So, yes, she's been involved in the conversation, and yes, she is all for this.
Yeah, it's playing Monopoly.
Let me
Right.
ask another.
That's what it is.
Let me ask another question another way. Are we swapping for the same amount of land?
It's identical size and identical value.
That's all I need to hear.
All right. Any further discussion from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes unanimously. Proposed ordinance number 19-022.
An ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Boynton Beach, Florida, amending the Land Development Regulations, Chapter 2, Article 2, Section 4F, entitled Request for Accommodation, providing for codification, conflict, severability, and an effective date.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion from the board? Seeing none, may I have a roll call, please?
Mayor Grant,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Katz, Commissioner McCray,
Yes.
Commissioner Romulus,
Yes.
Commissioner Prince-Zerga.
Yes.
The vote is 5-0.
Ordinance 19023, an ordinance of the City of Boynton Beach, Florida, amending Chapter 2 of the Code of Ordinances entitled Administration, Article 1, in general, by creating Section 224 to be entitled Non-Discrimination Policy, providing for non-discrimination in the city's hiring policies and all other activities promoted or sponsored by the City of Boynton Beach, providing for codification, conflict, severability, and an effective date.
May I have a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
Is there any discussion from the board? Seeing none, may I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner McCray,
Yes.
Commissioner Romulus,
Aye.
Commissioner Prince-Zerga,
Yes.
Mayor Grant,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Katz. Vote is 5-0.
Ordinance 19024, an ordinance of the City of Boynton Beach, Florida, amending the Land Development Regulations, Chapter 3, Zoning, Article 4, Use Regulations, Section 3, Use Regulations, clarifying the ability for an accessory use to be conducted outside a building within abutting road and canal right-of-ways, providing for conflict, severability, codification, and an effective date.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor, I'm sorry, may I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Romulus,
Yes.
Commissioner Pensurga,
Yes.
Mayor Grant,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Katz, Commissioner McCray.
Yes.
The vote is 5-0.
Ordinance 19026, an ordinance of the City of Boynton Beach, Florida, amending Ordinance 05061 relating to the Quantum Park Overlay Dependent District, providing for amendments to the purpose, general powers, and duties of the Quantum Park Overlay Dependent District, providing for conflict severability, and providing an effective date.
So moved.
Second.
Jim, I believe you told me you needed to make some changes to this as well.
I will return a version of this with just a few suggested changes for second reading. By way of example, it talks about the authority of the board to transfer and dispose of property as they wind down their activity. I think there should be a clause that says that all those transfers are going to be to the City of Boynton Beach, which would be the outcome if you flat out dissolve the board. So might as well say it in here. And you may want to think about whether or not the City Commission could substitute in for the board members. Perhaps the chair could speak to that, but since the only purpose left would be to administer the debt, the rest of the activities are going to be taken on by the city anyway. It may be appropriate for the City Commission to serve in that dual role.
All right.
It's a policy decision.
Yes. Vice Mayor.
I'll let Colin speak because he's got insight as a member of the board.
Yes, so this ordinance is, the board has voted to move this ordinance to you to, there's 3 steps. One is to remove the maintenance responsibility once land is transferred to the city, and I agree with the city attorney that we need to add that language, it's to the city. The second part is yes, if the board, if the city commission wishes to serve as the board and you change that ordinance, I don't think any board member is worried about that. I will say, though, that we have looked at our finances. We believe we are recommending I'm speaking as the board chairman now, not as the city, so I should have said that for the record. The board is too. I know it's weird. Anyways, the board is recommending sunsetting. The board's attorney recommended to make it September 30th, 2020. Only not that that's when they want to dissolve, but the latest date they could resolve. They want to dissolve. The board has voted to dissolve the minute the debt is paid off, which we believe, based on information we received today, is in October of this year or maybe November. We're still waiting for final numbers on what it's going to cost to fix some things, where some money goes. There's some moving parts that we're trying to final up, but we believe we can dissolve very, very quickly. So the question is, if you move the debt to the city, what is that paperwork involved? If it's only going to be a few months, it's really up to y'all if you want to do that or not. It might be easier just to keep the board for a month and then dissolve. But it's really the vote is to dissolve the board as soon as possible and as soon as the debt's paid off.
So the only concern is that, and if there's any different accounts payable or any additional liabilities that the district may have after the bond is paid out. Yeah, the board attorney is recommending putting anything like that into a trust for the city to use to pay those. That's what the board's attorney now. The attorneys have to get together and figure out how to legally write that. But. So yeah, if we instead of them being able to dissolve it after the bond is paid, let's have this commission being able to dissolve it. I think that protects us.
Yeah, I think that's how the rest work.
Is that Vice Mayor?
Yeah, so that was going to be my recommendation as well. I think that, as Colin pointed out, the debt can be paid down very quickly now because the district is being run properly. So the debt will not exist within a couple months. The lawsuits no longer exist. The only remaining aspect that I would like this board to reflect on before the complete dissolution of the Quantum Park Overlay Dependent District is the Eco Park, oft mentioned by Charles Cantor, who served on this board, who lives in Parkside, and I think it's on his bucket list to get this park up and running, and I would love to be able to deliver that for him and the residents. If it comes to us and we become the board once all the liabilities are paid off and there's no lawsuits, then the board exists to either be dissolved or to perpetuate itself for a short period of time to generate revenue to seed the startup costs associated with the park, the startup costs and maybe some maintenance costs for a period of time as well, that in the future could transition to the city and Parks and Rec's responsibility. So I would ask my fellow commissioners in between now and the next reading to just inquire with the city attorney or Colin about if you're in support of ensuring that Eco Park gets developed, and knowing that this city is not going to have $500,000 to develop this park and the parking lot and all the infrastructure. Even though it's a passive park, there's still requirements to keep the district around just long enough to seed that. So speak to staff, and if you're not up to spec on that, try to learn a little bit so the next meeting, that's my prominent point of discussion next time, because it really is the only remaining issue left, is whether to pursue that park as intended all these years or to simply convey the land to the city with no means of paying for the park startup, which means it likely will not become a park.
So, like what we said, that it doesn't dissolve right after the bond is paid, that the commission will take over. And well, we still need a first read. We have a motion and a second.
Yes.
All right. Any further discussion from the board? Seeing none, may I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Prince-Durga,
Yes.
Mayor Grant,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Katz, Commissioner McCray,
Yes.
Commissioner Romulus.
Yes.
Vote is 5-0.
All right. Anything for future agenda? Seeing none, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
All right. All in favor, say so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye.